No, I think he's the most overrated in terms of MLB players that are considered a star. He's got to be the most overrated player in baseball. I can't even remember the last time he did something.
Hey, get this sauce.
Not Jackson Merrill. Not Jackson Merrill, bro. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Another college football Saturday. So let's brace ourselves. The last two have been disgusting for me. Honestly, though, I'm feeling good this morning, and here's why. So yesterday, well, first of all, I like my bets today, and I was a little more selective. I think I only have like 8 or 9 bets open for the entire, and it's a loaded college football Saturday. I think I only have 8 or 9 bets open. So I was a little more selective, and I like my picks today. So that's number one. Number two, last night, I didn't place any college football bets because I said in the beginning of the show yesterday, I was like, guys, I don't like any of these games. My favorite bet last night was UNLV minus the points. And then we all saw what happened at the end of that game. And it was almost a positive thing because it was like my intuition not to bet anything was correct, if that makes any sense at all. It was like, wow, I dodged a bullet by not betting these games tonight. So I don't know. I took it as a positive. I'm trying to look at it glass half full. I did bet the Padres, though. But I mean, a little bit of gambling involved there. It's game 5 of NLDS.
How about those Wildcats, though? Let's go. Northwestern.
Yeah, that was... I mean, I had a feeling that Lausch would play well. I just figured Northwestern would choke at the end of the game. What?
Understandable.
That defense is legit.
Yeah, well, the defensive front is. That secondary is so beatable. I'm telling you, it's beatable.
Yeah.
All right. Someone said tail Andy, fade Kyle. It's
Life
like,
comes at you fast.
That wouldn't be any smarter.
2 weeks ago was like, I'm only here for Kyle. I don't know why this guy's Andy's on the show. Anyway, South Carolina, Alabama. We got a lot of games to get through, so let's start it up. South Carolina, Alabama, and Tuscaloosa. I talked about this game last night on the YouTube video. I don't really know what you can expect from South Carolina offensively in this game. I'm not sure how we're expecting them to score points on the road. This is a bad offensive line. Someone actually said in the comments, a South Carolina fan, that it's not the offensive line is better this year, but apparently the RBs and tight ends are really struggling, giving them blocking help. It sounded like somebody who knew what they were talking about, but regardless, the blocking's bad. How about that? I know Alabama's defense gave up big numbers in the last 2 games to Georgia and Vanderbilt, but it was all through the air. Their numbers against the run still look elite. So I don't know what we're expecting here from South Carolina. Lenore Sellers is not proven as a passer at all. The South Carolina passing numbers don't look good, and they're not going to be able to run the ball. So I don't trust South Carolina's offense at all here. But the thing is, the reason I don't want to lay the 21.5 for Alabama, this Gamecock defense is impressive. We all knew they were going to have this elite pass rush coming into the season. That's nothing surprising. They have one of the best pass rushes in the country. They're actually doing a great job against the run as well. They shut Ole Miss down. They gave LSU a ton of problems. Well, in the first half, they gave LSU a ton of problems in the first half. They shut Kentucky down. The South Carolina defense deserves respect. So instead of laying the points with Alabama, I think the best bet would go under here. I didn't actually bet this one, but I would go under 50.5 or South Carolina team total under if you'd rather go there. But just put up under 50.5 for me.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for the super chat, by the way.
What's up, Greg? He left a couple positive comments last night as well. Appreciate it, man.
Georgia Tech's a nuke, he said. So, this seems to be a spot to hammer Alabama. I just don't think I can take a chance on South Carolina. They're an interesting team. I mean, the Cox play hard, then they go soft, and then they play hard again. The problem is they're playing teams coming off bad losses. Ole Miss off that Kentucky loss, now Alabama off that Vanderbilt loss. I hate that kind of position for a team. I like Ole Miss's defense more than Bama's. Robbie Ashford needs to be the quarterback of South Carolina. I'm sorry. He's a way better thrower, and right now a better rusher than Sellers too. But Shane Beamer's sticking with Sellers. Not only do I not believe in Sellers, their offensive line doesn't exactly give them any time either. Their offensive line does suck. So they're constantly allowing sacks. They're the most they've given up the most sacks in the country. They're 129th in pressure rate. And their run blocking isn't much better. They're last in tackles for loss. So this offensive line is a turnstile. They are absolutely dreadful. So Yeah, South Carolina does have an incredible defense, sure, but it's hard to do much when their offense is this bad. Milroe's been playing great football, and Alabama's running game, I think, will just wear down Carolina. So, yeah, I would take Alabama here.
I would lean that way as well, as far as a side, by the way. Andy?
Yeah, I put it in there. This is first half. I'm taking Alabama. I got Alabama minus 11.5. I think as the game goes on, you could see their O-line get worn down a little bit by this pass rush for South Carolina. Because, I mean, if you're losing by a decent amount, those guys are just going to be hammering those offensive linemen. So I think that they could be a little gassed. So could be a backdoor cover. But I think early in this game, there's no more. I don't think there's a stadium in the country today, maybe besides Oregon, that's got to have more juice than Alabama. I mean, they're coming off the most embarrassing loss maybe in program history. It's a home game now. The last home game they played, they beat Georgia, and then they went on the road, lost to Vanderbilt. I mean, your crowd definitely going to show up for that. I hope their fans aren't that big of assholes that they completely leave. But I think that stadium's going to have a ton of juice. And South Carolina got off to a terrible start against Ole Miss and kind of just shriveled up. I think that's going to happen again. I think Alabama's just got way too much negative energy to the point where they have to come in. They're not going to fall asleep like they fell asleep against Vanderbilt. Early in that game, it was pretty clear they walked into that game. They can't do that again. I don't think they will do that again. And we've seen this team, besides that game, get off to some pretty damn good starts. I mean, they were up 28-0 on Georgia. So I just think the first half they should be able to crush them. And I think Carolina might get better as the game goes on because they might wear down the offensive line.
All right, let's move on to the next one, which is Clemson Wake Forest. All right, this is a very short description for me here. I did bet this one. It's not one of my bigger bets, but I laid it with Clemson. I also don't hate a Clemson first half bet. Very simply, the matchup between the Clemson offense and the Wake Forest defense is just as big of a mismatch as it gets. Wake Forest can't stop anybody. And the Clemson offense, I'm sure if you've paid any attention to college football, you already know this. Since the Georgia game, you could probably make a solid argument that Clemson has looked like the best offense in college football. They are routing teams. No one can stop the run. No one can stop the pass. I mean, they're doing literally whatever they want offensively, which honestly shouldn't surprise us because the last few years with DJU and then Klubnik, Clemson kind of got branded as like, oh, this is a good defense, but you can't trust this offense. And we had evidence to think that. Coming into this year, I believe they brought, I think it was 10 of 11 starters from last year. I think it was all 5 starters on the offensive line. They brought back so much talent on the offensive side, and this is Clemson talent. So it's not shocking that this offense is good this year, and we just got the first impression from the Georgia game. This offense should do whatever it wants on Wake Forest, and the reason that where I think the value is in this game is the Clemson defensive numbers are extremely misleading. If you look at Clemson's defensive numbers on the year, you might be like, oh, Clemson's struggling a bit defensively. That's not accurate. Well, yeah, obviously in the Georgia game, but even that was a close, low-scoring game at halftime. But it's in the other games, I mean, they were up 42-0 on App State. App State scored 20 points at garbage time. They were up 52-7 on NC State. NC State scored 4 touchdowns in the final 17 minutes of the game in garbage time. So the Clemson's second unit is getting lit up in garbage time. So Clemson's defense is much better than their numbers indicate. That's where I think the value is in this one. So I laid it with Clemson. They should beat the living life out of Wake Forest.
Yeah, I bet this too. These spreads are so big. I mean, we saw the backdoor covers a lot this season, but Wake's defense is just so damn bad. When NC State scores 30 on you, and that's CJ Bailey after replacing Grayson McCall, so he wasn't even getting starting reps going to that game. He still threw for 272 and 2 touchdowns. I would lean a Clemson team who just looks like a completely different team after that initial Georgia team. And like you said, the defense is getting lit up on their second unit. So Clemson is just a way better defense than NC State. Maybe their defensive line's a little shaky, but big game Hank Bachmeier looked bad. The issue with Clemson last game with Florida State is they just couldn't put the ball in the end zone. Wake has one of the worst red zone defenses in the country. I mean, they dominated Florida State. Clemson did. That score should have been 45-13. So this Wake Forest team is last in passing yards allowed per game in the Big Ten. The bet I have on this game is kind of piggybacking on what you have. Clemson is first in the FBS in first quarters. They're averaging 18 points in the first quarter. Opponents haven't scored a first quarter point yet on Clemson. So, it's an 18-0 trend there. So, yeah, I would love the first quarter here. Clemson -6.5 is what I bet. Their offense isn't bad at all. Their offensive line should be overpowered here. Talking about Wake, and I like Clemson to win this one comfortably, but I would definitely lean the first quarter here because they're just dominating teams in the first quarter.
What about R-Truth?
R-Truth didn't really like this game a lot. I did look at Hank Bachmeier's over in passing yards because it was at 204.5. But I'm not betting. I didn't bet it. I didn't put it in there because, I mean, they could be getting beat so badly he gets benched. Honestly, and he didn't look good last week. He only had a 50% completion percentage, and he had his first game below 200 yards this year. So usually I'd like to a veteran quarterback, I'd like to say, well, he's going to have a much better game this week, but I don't think he is against Clemson. So I thought about it because I think they're going to get it blown out, but late. But the backdoor cover scares me because if you watched the game last week with Clemson, they were like late in the game trying to give up the cover. They were like trying to give Florida State points. It felt like it was just a boring end of the game, and they just weren't really doing anything, and Florida State was kind of driving a couple of times, but I don't think Wake Forest will do that. I'd lean Clemson because I think Wake Forest is also coming off a big win, which usually is a flat spot for them. So I just lean Clemson, but I don't like it.
All right, next game. What's next game? Iowa?
Yep.
Yeah. Was there like a baseball game yesterday or something?
What's up?
No, I don't think so.
Was there a baseball
I don't
game
think so.
yesterday or something?
No, not that I saw.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Iowa, Washington. I have Iowa money line in this one. Let's see what the price is currently at. It moved a little bit. Yeah. You could still get a -135 on Caesars, so you could still get it. I like Iowa to win the game. Really don't like this matchup for Washington offensively. What we saw last game, Iowa on the road in Columbus, what Ohio State did to Iowa, Washington isn't built like that. And by the way, I think this Washington team's pretty good. I like Jed Fish. I think Will Rogers never really got a fair shake playing on a bad team in the toughest conference, right? So I like this Washington team, but I don't like the way they're built to go into Kinnick here and try to move the ball. Ohio State said, I don't care that you're a top 5 run defense, Iowa. We're going to run the shit out of the ball anyway. Washington can't do that. Washington needs to get Will Rogers back in the pocket, throwing the ball. And I mean, Will Rogers gets rid of the ball quickly. He throws a lot of short passes. Iowa has 2 of the best linebackers in the country that can get sideline to sideline quickly. And I don't think the offense that we've seen Jed Fish running with Washington, I don't think it translates here on the road in Kinnick. I think Washington's going to struggle to move the ball. And on the other side, as far as Iowa's offense, yeah, the run game that looks so promising didn't really show up much against Ohio State. But Caleb Johnson did break some runs there at the end, but the game was out of hand by that point. They should be able to run the ball in Washington. I mean, Rutgers ran the ball all over Washington. Michigan, I think it was, ran the ball all over Washington. So Washington's last 2 games, they couldn't stop the run. So Iowa's just going to hand it off against this Washington defensive front, and they should be successful with it. Also, for those of you that like trends, Iowa coming off 28-point losses that are now favored in the next game, 5-0. And is 4-4.
I had that actually. That's what was funny.
5-0, 4-0-1 against the spread since 1988, the year I was born.
Kirk Ferentz's first year. Not really. 10 years later. But.
So yeah, I'm on Iowa here. I took the money line at -135, and it looks like if you shop around, you can still get a price close to that.
I'll go quickly because it's pretty much everything he just said. I think they're going to run all over him. Washington played at Rutgers and ran all over. To be fair, they did a lot of running over themselves, but this Iowa defense is a much better run defense than Rutgers. That's Rutgers' big problem is they can't stop the run. Iowa can. I know they just got run over by Ohio State. Like he said, this is not Ohio State's rush attack. This is much different. This is Washington. So you're really asking, do you think Will Rogers is going to get a lot done? I don't think he will on the road. If I remember correctly, I don't have the exact numbers. I know they've only played 1 road game this year, so it doesn't really make a difference this year. But I remember Will Rogers struggling a little bit on the road in when he was at Mississippi State and being a guy who couldn't necessarily hit on the road. That could follow him here. I think this is a tough place to play. Kinnick's not easy to play. It's a really tough defense that has The numbers look a lot worse than last year, but like you got to give them credit. They've played Iowa State and they've played Ohio State. Those are two very tough offenses to face. I mean, they were making Iowa State look pretty good in that one. So in this one, I just think they're going to do a lot of running. This is going to be a low-scoring, fast game. I think it'll be the first 12 o'clock game to finish probably because Washington's been running the ball a lot lately too, but I think Iowa's going to run all over.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm going with Iowa too. This Washington defense is not Ohio State, even though the numbers are good. I understand it's Cade McNamara, and I get Washington's offense has been extremely solid, but they're going into Kinnick Stadium, which is going to be a really tough place to play. Looking at the numbers, you can definitely see this Iowa's offense is kind of garbage, but they're third in defensive rating. I think they're going to cause some problems here. Caleb Johnson has been this whole offense. And even though he got stuffed at Ohio State, he's going to get over 100 yards here. He's going to establish his whole offense for Iowa. He averages 7.9 yards a carry, which is insane. And Washington's run defense isn't great. They're a way better pass defense than run defense, and that's something Iowa just doesn't do. So, but the run is going to open some passing room up, and hopefully Cade McNamara isn't Cade McNamara. I think Kirk, speaking of Andy said, I think Kirk Ferentz is kind of coaching for his job here. He needs a Big Ten, like a big Big Ten win here. I think the front seven is going to do a great job for Iowa to chew some clock offensively. I think they should win this game, and it should be. I was going to say it should be a low-scoring game, but Iowa's 4-1 towards the over, so who knows?
Yeah, it's because their total's like 36 every week.
Yeah,
it was 41, a high number.
Yeah, that is a high total for Iowa. All right, next game. Next game is Wisconsin Rutgers. Scoop obviously is a Rutgers alum. Do you think the Scarlet Knights get it done today?
Yeah, they're going to get it done today. Yeah, I was at this. Actually, I was at that wedding for the game last week, and that pass when Rutgers was wide open and bounced off their face mask, it was miserable. So, listen, Rutgers has a good defense, but man, that passing game is just really bad. The good thing is Wisconsin's run defense has been terrible. But that guy should run all over this Wisconsin team. Rutgers had the third best offensive line in terms of run plays. They're pretty terrible at pass blocking, but yeah, the Greek back there, he can hardly throw a ball anyway. So Rutgers secondary is great. They really shut down Raiola that whole game. Raiola only had 134 yards and a pick, but with Monangai not having any running room, they had to throw. And you saw how Rutgers can throw the ball. He was 15 for 37 with 2 picks. So that's not good. But listen, Rutgers is 8-2 at home the last 2 years. Their offensive line's a bit banged up. Taj White actually looked pretty bad filling in at left guard, but Wisconsin has a lot of holes in that front seven, and Monangai is 4th nationally in yards per game. And Rutgers hasn't beaten Wisconsin in a while, but they've closed the gap. That game last year at Wisconsin last year was really close. That coupled with Wisconsin has an inexperienced quarterback and running back duo now. And the fact that Rutgers is only giving up 15 points a game, and they're the better team here. You could say it's Rutgers, but they are definitely the better team than Wisconsin. Don't look at that Purdue game and think that Wisconsin's world beaters by any means. It's freaking Purdue, who you can see how they're doing. Yeah, I like Rutgers in a bounce back spot here. Big Ten champs. Let's go.
R-Truth?
I would lean Wisconsin. There are games that I really like today. This is the one that I'll be honest, I don't look at the Rutgers games the same because I can't bet them. So like I don't really know how to look into them. But I would just lean Wisconsin. I think Rutgers is so one-dimensional that you can just stack the box and hope for the best. I mean, he can't throw. I mean, they lost 14-7 last week. Nebraska was basically giving the game away, and they just couldn't take it. He literally cannot throw the football. I mean, it's a far cry from what he was his first year at Minnesota. It's sad to watch, but yeah, they're again, just like last year, Rutgers is just a one-dimensional football team that in these types of games, when you have smart coaching like Luke Fickell, and it's tough because you can't be one-dimensional against good coaching, and I think that's the issue here.
You can be one-dimensional on a shitty front seven, though.
I would be on Wisconsin, but it wouldn't be a lean. I'd be betting this if I could. I liked Wisconsin at 2.5. It dropped down to 1.5. Rutgers hasn't looked good. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm rooting for Rutgers, obviously. We're all in New Jersey here. Rutgers is representing us right now. I'm rooting for them, but I don't like this matchup for Rutgers. I mean, they looked awful in the Washington game. That final score is not an indication of how that game went. You could say, look, we know this Wisconsin offense hasn't looked great, but they are capable of running the football. Rutgers can't stop anybody on the ground. I know Braden Locke hasn't looked amazing so far as a quarterback. got thrown into the Alabama game. And you know what? If you look at his splits when given a clean pocket, he has some nice looking numbers when given a clean pocket. Rutgers doesn't have an overbearing pass rush. He gets rid of the ball quickly. I actually think Braden Locke could have a good game against this Rutgers defense. And as far as the Rutgers offense, yeah, Monungai, we know they're going to hand the ball off. We know it's tough to stop. But you know what? In Rutgers' last 3 games against Virginia Tech, Nebraska, and Washington, they're averaging just 3.55 yards per carry as a team with a success rate per rush below 38%. So although we know this run game is very physical, it's good. Hasn't been wildly efficient recently. Like Scoop said, though, Wisconsin's defense is not Wisconsin. This is not a Jim Leonard Wisconsin defense from 2021, that's for sure. But I think Wisconsin could score points on Rutgers, and I would have hammered that Wisconsin plus 2.5 if I could have, but obviously it's in Jersey. So next game.
I just saw an update too that Rutgers is down 2 top defensive players as well today. One is a corner and one is a linebacker. It literally just popped up.
Probably a good thing. So
next up is Georgia Tech, North Carolina, and maybe someone in the comments, maybe one of you guys can shed some light. Money's coming in on the North Carolina side. For the life of me, I can't figure out why. But when I did the video on this game, I was leading Georgia Tech at 5.5. I saw a 3.5 this morning. So no question, looks like sharp money coming in on the North Carolina side. I got nothing. I have no idea.
I think I found, and I'm banking on it too because I bet UNC last night. Georgia Tech, their run defense, the numbers are pretty good, but I came to realize last night they have played absolutely no running teams. I mean, they have 5 of their 5 games now, or 6 games. 5 of them have been against teams. Well, one was an FCS game. The other 4 below 100 rushing teams, and then Louisville, who's 68th. That's who they faced rushing attacks this year. Now you're facing an NFL running back who I think is going to get a lot done on the ground. So really from that point, you've got the home team that's going to have the ground game. I think they can control it, take advantage of that now. I'm terrified of UNC's defense. Don't get me wrong. I think their defense, it's a joke how bad it is. And they are relatively one-dimensional on offense. But if you can control the ground game at home, I think they can win this game. And that gives me the thought that UNC can win it.
Someone said in the comments, Cam Rising looked like he was running in skinny jeans last night.
I mixed those up. It's UNC +4.
Wait. You took North Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's laying in all the
damn ball.
And he's laying the ball.
My bad.
Andy made the graphics. That's all you need to know.
No, he wants the plus 170 or whatever it's going to be.
That'd be more than that. That'd be like plus 3 something.
Yeah, North Carolina, I don't know if the trust is gone for you with this team. They're last in the ACC. They're not looking good. I would lean Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech looked pretty bad against Duke until that fourth quarter. So I just feel like this game is 2 teams that no one really cares about, to be honest. This is kind of 2 mediocre offenses and 2 bad defenses. Haynes King is pretty fun, though. They kind of changed from a running team to a more balanced team. Haynes King has been taking care of the ball. He has 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, 74 completion percentage. And really, even though North Carolina has a decent offense, they're just so inconsistent to watch. They might be the most inconsistent team in football, especially in the second half where they come out strong in the first half and they just completely collapse. So Georgia Tech has a great run defense. They're actually giving up the least amount in the ACC. I know Marion Hampton's back there. He's a good running back. But this is kind of going to be North Carolina's MO lately. They'll keep it close in the beginning. They'll get worn out defensively, give up big plays. So Georgia Tech should be able to take away the run a little bit. I'm not saying Hampton's going to get shut down because Hampton's probably one of the top 5 running backs in the nation. And Criswell hasn't that impressive to keep him in the game, I don't think. So, and keep in mind, he was a third stringer to start the season. So, yeah, I'm going to take Georgia Tech here. I would lay the points.
If I had to place a bet, I would probably be on the same side, but there's no way I bet this. The line movement is weird, and I don't know. I don't like how Georgia Tech is also their 2 worst offensive games this year were both of their road games. I don't like that as well. We haven't really seen Georgia Tech play a good offensive game on the road, and now we're going to lay more than a field goal. I don't really like that. But yeah, it would only be Georgia Tech for me if I was to bet it, but I will not be betting this. Next. What's next? Stanford, Notre Dame. Andy, you like the Irish?
No, I like Stanford actually. So last week Stanford did a pretty good job of stopping Kyron Drones, but it didn't matter. He threw all over them. He didn't run at all, which is what I mean. He couldn't run at all, but he threw. I think he was like 12 of 18 for like 200 yards, and they were able to take him out at like halftime. It was 31-7 final. This week, they are facing Riley Leonard. If they can stop the running game from the quarterback, and they have a good run defense, Stanford. That's the one thing on their defensive side that they've been pretty solid at. That's really all you need to do to keep it close against Notre Dame. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win. They're still probably going to lose by 2 touchdowns. But if you can stop Riley Leonard in this rushing attack, which is really good, are they going to be able to throw on you? I really don't know. The only team they've thrown on this year is Purdue, and I think everybody could throw on Purdue right now. So I think that Stanford can just keep it close from the rush attack from Notre Dame. I think they could stop it, and that's really all. That's a high number for a team that really, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. So, high number.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. I didn't actually bet this one, but it no doubt it would only be Stanford for me here, for the same reasons you said, and to put some numbers to what you just said. In the last 3 games, Stanford has played. Listen to the teams they've played: Clemson, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. That's 3 good offenses there. Clemson and Virginia Tech especially, a lot of talent. Actually, Syracuse has got talent too. In those 3 games, Stanford is allowing 3.76 yards per carry and a 36% success rate on the ground. Just 104 rushing yards per game. So this Stanford team, look, they're not a great football team. They actually could stop the run, and they have been, I don't want to say shutting down because they got their asses beat by Clemson, but they didn't get run on. They've actually been stopping the rushing attack from good offenses recently. So now they're going on the road to Notre Dame, a team that can only run the ball. There's no way I could lay a big number with that. Also, by the way, the reason I didn't actually place it, I'm a little worried about the health of Ashton Daniels. I think from what I'm reading, he is going to play. But I don't know. I mean, he's a guy that relies on his athleticism. I don't know if he's banged up. We saw Cam Rising last night. What happens when these quarterbacks play when they're not healthy? So I can't actually bet it, but I do think Stanford is more than capable of keeping this close.
Yeah, I mean, is Notre Dame really 23 points better than Stanford? I don't know. Notre Dame metrics-wise, they're the best defense in college football. I mean, they do give up 12 points a game. I guess I would lean Notre Dame. I wouldn't bet this. Stanford just lost the 2 games combined, 71-21, and if Virginia Tech only gives up 7 points in Stanford, I find it hard to believe that Stanford's going to put up any points in South Bend. Micah Ford rushed decently against Clemson, but now faces one of the best defenses in the country. I just don't see him finding any room. These teams played last year in Stanford. Notre Dame won by 33 points, and that was with 4 turnovers. And with the week off, you have to think the offense is going to improve, and nothing like playing Stanford to actually improve your offense. The issue is laying these big spreads this season hasn't been great. I think there's better value somewhere else, personally.
Next game. Fair point. Next game is Purdue.
Ryan Walters' revenge game? Is that what this is?
This is the Ryan Walters revenge game, and I actually like that side. I didn't bet it. I won't bet Purdue again. That's craziness. But I don't really like this matchup for Illinois in terms of laying 23 points. Not in terms of losing the football game. Let me be very clear on that. We're now laying 23 points with Illinois here. Purdue was able to run the ball last week. I mean, I don't necessarily think Illinois is a tough matchup for Purdue. Purdue's weak on the defensive front. Illinois, not really an offense that runs the ball. This is an offense that wants to throw the ball with Altmaier. So this offense doesn't really implement what Purdue is weakest against. There's no way I'd lay 23 with Illinois. Illinois is a team I like to bet as dogs against good teams because Altmaier shows up. It would be Purdue or pass for me here. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this game.
Yeah, so I noticed I'm 6-0 towards the favorite. I swear I'm going to pick an underdog.
Hold on, Prop People. Can you pause the background thing because it's skipping? All right, go ahead.
But it's not going to be Purdue. I'm not backing them. Hudson Card couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They only covered 1 spread. I mean, the last 4 games, they lost by 140 points. They're also 132nd against the run. They're giving up 230 yards a game. Sure, Illinois is averaging 3.8 yards a game running the ball, but look at their opponents. It's a way better run defense than Purdue. I think it's time to jack those numbers up a little bit, even if they can't get a running game going here, which I actually really doubt. Altmaier's been great, 11-to-1 turnover touchdown turnover ratio. Yeah, and I don't know. They scored less than they gave up 21 or fewer in the last 4 of their power conference games. Their defense has been incredible. They're also coming off 2 rough road games in Nebraska and then Penn State. Now you have a week off to get healthy and game plan for a terrible Purdue team. I think Ryan Walters may be fired this season. I don't know how many points Purdue can even score here.
Come on, bro.
Maybe 3.
I'm taking a quick piss.
I think 3 points Purdue will score here. I like this Illinois team. I think they absolutely roll.
I will be taking Illinois first half. I think Hudson Card not playing, I don't really know how much that does. I mean, it just means that somebody who doesn't play quarterback very often is playing quarterback. Like that's all it means. You're just not having a veteran who's not doing anything playing quarterback anymore. I think that Illinois will get a lot done in the first half, and they could be up 21-0 at halftime, and then just kind of put it in cruise control, give up a late touchdown, and not cover. So that's my play is simply I think that I thought I put a graphic in there. Maybe not. I might have not. But I'm
the first half play and doesn't put a graphic.
He also put North Carolina -4. So
yeah, I'm an asshole. I've been up all day. I think Illinois just first half they should roll them. Kind of similar to Alabama. Just the backdoor cover kind of scares me because Purdue's not going to stop. Purdue's, like you said, their coach is kind of coaching for his job at this point. He came from Illinois, so he definitely wants to put up some points and show maybe a little bit against the defense that he built. But I just think the first half Illinois will roll.
Wait.
Where'd Kyle go?
I'm right here.
No.
So let's go to the next game. Who cares? Ryan Walters about to get fired. That's enough bullshit for one day.
Hey, Andy said it too.
I do think
doesn't mean it's true. Second year with no talent on the roster. Yeah, fire the coach. Okay. Fire defensive genius. Okay.
Coach Brom's got talent on his roster. It's his year too.
Andy, go ahead. Lay the 7.5 with Louisville.
Yeah, I am.
I know.
I was hoping it would
because you're a sucker.
Is that weird line movement? It opened at 8.5. It got down to 7 like Tuesday or something. And I really, really thought it was going to get to 6.5, and I was excited. I was doing jumping jacks. So I was excited. But it never hit 6.5, so that kind of crushed me, but I took it at 7. I think this is a spot where Virginia, they've done a really, really good job. And I'm a Virginia guy. I've been betting them all year, and they've done a really good job other than the Maryland game. They haven't played anybody. I mean, we just saw Maryland. That's one of their losses at home this year. Maryland looked awful. They beat Richmond, Coastal. They look awful. Like, they haven't beaten anybody. And Louisville's 2 losses are to SMU, who's 5-1, 25th in the country, and Notre Dame on the road in Notre Dame, who's also a top 25 team and a really good one. So Louisville's just gotten a tough scheduling. I just think it's a spot where you're looking at a Virginia team who they're better than they used to be, but they're not this good. Like, they're not 4-1 good, 5-1 good, whatever they are. Like, they're a good team, but they're not this good. So I think this is just a step above what they've seen so far this year. Calandria also, I think he's going to have an issue in this one because we've seen him get pressured and have trouble, and I think he could be under pressure in this one.
Scoop.
Here's where I'm going, the underdog. Small game merchant, my boy Calandria. This is a small game. Louisville's garbage. At home against Louisville, who's coming off a decently bad loss against SMU. Virginia's going to need this one too before going to Clemson next week. I know Louisville needs this too. They're on a 2-game skid, but Virginia seems like a magical ride team, maybe Grimace-esque. Looking to go 5-1 for the first time in 8 years. The biggest issue is Shao might be able to get some balls through, but I know Virginia's secondary is a bit banged up. But the team's also getting better every game since that Richmond win. I get the passing defense hasn't been up to standard, but they're going to shut down Chaney and Brown and make them throw. So defensively, Louisville has given up some big plays. Their defense is 85th in yards per play, so all that hype for that Louisville defense isn't great right now. Calandria can make some big throws. He's done it this season. He's improving every game since last year. Also, this offensive line can compete with Louisville's front seven. They're a top 10 in stuff rate. So even if they win this matchup, the matchups on the offensive line, I think more than a touchdown underdog at home. Yeah, I'm going to take Virginia.
I'd lean that way as well, but I really don't know how I feel about Calandria right now. So if you look at the line and the total for this game, it's 54. You could put Louisville team total under up. So I just put that. That's my actual bet is Louisville team total under. It's a small bet. If you look at the line and the total for this game, 54. Louisville laying 7.5 on the road. Their team total's at 30.5. I mean, what have we seen from Louisville's offense recently to think they're about to score 31 points or more on the road? In their only road game, they didn't look good at all. Now, granted, that was against Notre Dame, but still, I mean, we haven't seen this offense play a good game on the road yet. And I mean, they can play a good game and still stay under 30 points. This is a lot of points. The run game, like Scoop said, hasn't been there for Louisville. They're averaging just 3.81 yards per carry in their last 3. Success rate on the ground down at 39%. This Virginia defense has played really tough against the run. So, I mean, look, is Tyler Shuck going to have opportunities to make plays? Sure. He's going to have opportunity to make throws, but you can say the same exact thing on the other side. Louisville's been struggling against the pass. Virginia not going to be able to run the ball in Louisville. He's going to have opportunity. Calandria is going to have opportunities to make plays as well. So I would lean towards Virginia, but I think my favorite, well, not I think, the bet I did place, a smaller bet, Louisville to stay under 30.5 points. I got it at plus money. Next. Cal Pitt.
You guys love this one.
Golden Bears.
The fellas.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scoop.
I'm a big fan of this Cal team. I think these teams are actually decently matched up. Coming off that heartbreaker against Miami, this Cal team's going to be fired up for Pitt. This is a team Cal can beat straight up. Holstein's been good. He had 381 yards against North Carolina, but North Carolina's defense isn't what it is. You can see his 3 interceptions. I think he's taking the care of the ball. But Holstein has 6 dropped interceptions by the defense. 6. So he should have 9 picks for the year. This Cal team is going to be the best defense Pitt has faced. Cal's 26 in defensive rating. They've been great at causing pressure, getting to the quarterback. Holstein isn't going to have all day to throw back there. This team, Pitt, is just exceeding expectations. It's time to slow it down. Cal should be 5-0. I know they should be. Their Florida State and Miami losses were both gross. Not only that, but Cal's offense has been sneaky good. Mendoza's looked really good. Javion Thomas is rushing for 6.4 yards a carry. And Pitt has won their 3 Power 5 games by a combined 15 points back there. So Pitt, you know, when they have played their opponents, they haven't looked good. They've been getting lucky. So I like Cal here. Cal's a better football team than Pitt.
Ditto, man. I'm on Cal plus 3.5 too. Bet this one, like this one. And just like Scoop said, I think they can win this game. Pitt's sitting at 5-0, Cal's sitting at 3-2, and just like Scoop said, that could easily be reversed. Cal could easily be sitting here, literally 1 or 2 or 3 plays difference, and Cal's sitting at 5-0, and Pitt is 3-2, and this game's probably a pick 'em. So yeah, there's a lot of what ifs in this one. Obviously, Pitt looks good, but I'm willing to call bullshit on Pittsburgh's defense. I agree with everything Scoop said. I'm just picking one of the talking points I have that he didn't mention. You look at Pittsburgh's defensive numbers, they're looking like a top 25 defense. This is not, no, they're not a top 25 defense. This is a unit that lost their entire defensive line from last year. They also lost their D-line coach. We haven't really seen it exploited yet. But this Pittsburgh defense is super overrated right now. They racked up elite defensive numbers in the Kent State and Youngstown State games. They just shut those teams down. If you isolate just their bigger games against West Virginia, North Carolina, Cincinnati, their defensive numbers don't look that great. They look like a mediocre defense, which is probably closer to what they really are. Like Scoop said, Cal should be the best defense that Holstein's seen so far this year. Shouldn't be higher than a field goal. I'm on the Golden Bears here.
I don't have much to say. I agree with you guys. You guys said everything. I don't really love the game overall because I do think this Pitt team is much better than they've been in years past. I think they're really good. But Cal's coming off one of the toughest losses we'll see a team take this season, blowing a 25-point lead at halftime at home against a top 10 team. I mean, you usually don't come back from that the same, but I think going on the road and facing another really good team is actually a better thing for them. Because it's a wake up spot after that. Yeah, that was bad. So I do think they can win this game outright here.
All right, next game.
Man, this game had so much potential.
Yeah, this is a weird one now. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's Memphis, South Florida. This is no longer a home game for South Florida because obviously the hurricane damaged their home stadium. So this game's being played in Orlando now. There's just so many moving parts with this game. And Andy's right. Like if we were getting this normal game with a healthy Byron Brown, this would be awesome. I mean, this should be like a 40-38 final score, fun game. But there's just so many moving parts. Number one, we came into this season expecting Memphis to have this high-powered passing attack, probably the best passing attack in the conference there, in the American Athletic Conference. Seth Hennigan hasn't looked good. I don't know what's going on with that Memphis offense. I mean, it can't be this bad. We saw Middle Tennessee give Seth Hennigan problems. They couldn't get the passing game going against Middle Tennessee. For those of you that don't follow Middle Tennessee football, La Tech just hung a 50-piece on them. A 50-piece on Middle Tennessee. Memphis couldn't get it going against Middle Tennessee. So, look, on paper, based on the talent and what we think these teams should be, Memphis should score on every possession against South Florida, but that's not what we've seen Memphis doing this year. They're struggling to move the football. The passing attack isn't working. And then on the other side, I mean, how could you take South Florida right now? I mean, we've seen this offense disappear for a few games. Granted, they did play a really tough schedule. They've seen Alabama, they've seen Miami. So maybe South Florida deserves a little bit of a pass based on the fact that they played some serious games. But Byron Brown, their quarterback, he's a game time decision. We don't even know if he's playing. Like I said, it's not a home game anymore. There's just so many moving pieces. I don't know if Memphis offense is going to show up out of nowhere and be the Memphis that we're expecting. I don't know. So this is a straight pass. I guess if you put a gun to my head, I'd say South Florida plus the points, but pass.
I had South Florida team total over 26.5, and that was yesterday. That was actually before they changed the stadium and before Byron Brown was ruled game time decision. This is now 23.5. So clearly I bet this at the wrong time and didn't wait. You could put it up because I did do the graphic because I mean you can't take it back. I bet it. And it is what it. I mean I still think if Byron Brown's in the game and they're moving and they're in a groove, I mean they could score 40. This offense is not this bad. I mean they are. I picked them to win the AAC, and this was the game that I circled that like. This would be the year. This would be the spot where they'd win it, and it would change their season and win the conference. And it's in shambles now because not only do you not have your home field advantage, although to be fair, they're still playing the game in Orlando, so the only difference is really the field. But I'm sure they'll have fans at the game. But Memphis is I think a wake up. They're about to wake up. I mean, they've had a couple of games in a row where you're like, where is your passing attack? Right? You just said it. Hennigan's supposed to be, this is his last year. This is supposed to be the year. They're supposed to make a run in the college football playoff. He's supposed to take them there. And they have not looked that great yet. Now, I think this is the spot where they will because USF has no defense. We all know that. The only way they win games is they win games by outscoring you and winning in shootouts. If Byron Brown's not healthy, I don't think they can. So I bet it already the team total, but I wish I didn't. So it is what it is.
So I'm on Memphis. This was moved here from Friday first. That was the first of the many dominoes to change this game. I like both of these teams. I think Andy likes South Florida too in general, not just this game. They're fun to watch, but mainly that's because they play fast. They're number one in pace in the country. The issue is after that Southern Miss win, Miami and Tulane, they've looked so bad. They're 92-25, getting outscored in 2 games. I know their 2 losses were Alabama and Miami, but that Tulane game, they couldn't do anything at all, offensively or defensively. They also had 3 separate running backs fumble the ball, so that's never a good thing. I don't really like South Florida here. They're kind of broken right now, and Memphis is when they're right, they're a wagon.
Memphis is broken too, man.
Yeah, but when they're right, they're 6-2 against the spread the last 8. They had 88 points the last 3 games. Memphis has been putting it on the ground all year. South Florida's run defense has been pretty bad, and they have major holes. They've given up huge plays. The last 7, Memphis has got South Florida's number. They're 6-1 against them their last 7 games. As much as I like Golish as a coach for South Florida, this doesn't look like the same team as the last couple of years. Definitely not last year's team anyway. I think Memphis should win this pretty comfortably. South Florida kind of has a dud on offense like they did last game, but I'm not betting this just because it's a weird game.
All right, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Cincinnati UCF. Are my notes correct?
Correct.
Okay. So actually, I'm hoping someone in the comments or maybe one of you guys could help me out here. Is there something going on with the field conditions here or the weather?
When I looked it up, it didn't get anything. There were no alarms or no red flags to me on Twitter or anything. So I don't know why the total went down like that. It's a very odd situation.
So, I'll go first then. Yeah, I like this over when it was 4 points higher.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I'm still on the over. Both of these teams are in the top 20 offensively, and they're 78th and 87th on the defensive side of the ball. We know Central Florida is a huge running team. They're 6th in efficiency on run offense. Cincy's defensive rushing stats, they're 94th yards per carry, 89th in efficiency. Even if KJ Jefferson throws the ball, which please don't, but Cincy doesn't have a good pass defense either. So the thing that is a bit concerning is since he's also a run-heavy offense, UCF has a decent run defense, but they're not world beaters by any means on the defensive side of the ball right now. They are terrible on pass defense. So, listen, if the run the game isn't there, Sorsby has been awesome. He's completing 66% of his passes. He has 12 touchdowns, 1 pick. One thing I am confused about is saying KJ Jefferson being a factor for UCF and they'll win this. I don't know. Have they seen him play football? I don't really get what's going on there. I do agree that since he's god-awful on third down defense, so maybe KJ can cause some problems there, scrambling or finding a receiver. But I think this game is honestly going to be back and forth all the whole way. So there's not going to be any defense played by both sides. I find it hard to see how anyone can call a stop. So, and don't forget this UCF team got rolled by Colorado and just let Florida score 24. 58.5 seems low, in my opinion. I think this is going to be a shootout.
Yeah, I agree all the way. Like you said, Sorsby's been a beast, and the UCF pass defense is abysmal. But at the same time, UCF should bounce back in a big way in terms of running the football. They should be averaging close to 6 yards a carry in this game against Cincinnati. I don't see who's making defensive stops in this one. That being said, this total was at 62. It's been bought down to 58.5. That's why I was asking about the field conditions. I'm wondering what.
So shout out to Too Legit who put UCF transfers in the comments, and I just looked it up. They lost 3 players to the transfer portal this week. I don't know that the total is involved in it, but this could be. They lost their kicker, so like that does play into it a little bit. You don't have a kicker. That's tough. I don't know that the total would move.
They probably have another kicker on the team.
Well, I know, but I really don't know.
They're not Brian Gable.
They do have like 90 players on a college.
No, yeah. I know. I'm just saying that could be something. And also, I've seen a lot of smoke that they might bench KJ Jefferson, which what a joke. But I either way, I'm on RJ Harvey. I'm on this team. I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? Well, I've picked them the last 2 weeks and they've gotten blown out. Or I picked them last week and they got blown out. I'm doing the same thing. I think that they're going to do the blowing out this week. I don't think Cincinnati is very good. A lot of their numbers were kind of juiced by their offensive numbers were juiced by the Towson game. And then on defense, they gave up almost like 6 yards per carry against Towson. What the hell is UCF going to do to you? Like, this is, I would say, the most elite rush attack in the country, but Florida kind of made them look bad last week. But I think they're going to
No, they were running the ball in Florida. KJ Jefferson was sacked 5 times in the game, making it look.
KJ Jefferson's ass. But yeah, I think that they will get a lot done on the ground at home.
KJ Jefferson. Dude.
I really think that's going to be bad. I mean, it's warranted. His own fan base hates him right now. They all want him bench. So like it's warranted. But yeah, I think that they are going to do the blowing out today. Cincinnati is do the blowing. yeah. I think they're UCF. Easy.
Andy thinks they're going to do the blowing today. So
they're going to do the blowing.
On that note,
they were blown. Now they're going to do the blowing.
They were blown.
They were blown. Now yeah.
All right. Next up, is it the MAC game?
It is the MAC.
Dude, this is like the MAC game of the year right here, though.
Yeah.
So for those of you that didn't watch the preseason preview videos we did, there was about 30 of you that watched them. So for those 30, you'll know what we're talking about. These were me and Andy's picks to win the MAC. Andy picked Bowling Green, and I took Northern Illinois. So I'm sticking to my guns, Northern Illinois. I didn't bet it yet. I mean, if is there a 3 available? It was at 2.5 across the board when I looked this morning. If there's a 3 available, I'll do it. But no, all 2.5s. So yeah, No, but Northern Illinois is my pick. That was my pick before the season to win the conference, and because they took that stupid loss to Buffalo after the Notre Dame upset, that is in jeopardy. So they need this game. Northern Illinois, as far as how the teams match up, Northern Illinois should have no problem running the ball on Bowling Green. That's playing into the weakness of their defense. This is a Northern Illinois offense that wants to run the ball. They could definitely come in here and run the ball, but I'm not sure if they're able to stop Connor Bazelak from throwing the ball on him. So my pick's Northern Illinois. Not going to spend a ton of time talking on it. I would bet it at 3, not at 2.5.
Yeah, I need Maction to start during the week, man. Mac weekend football just doesn't do it for me. I need like a Tuesday night Mac attack.
Yeah, I'm good on Conference USA already.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet this. I like Northern Illinois. Bowling Green, I think, is a little overrated here. Northern Illinois is going to run the ball all game, like you said. I don't care if it's Ontario Brown, Gavin Williams, Jalen Poe, whoever it is. This team's solid, averaging over 5 yards a carry. They're 11th in the country in yards per carry. And going against a Bowling Green defense, giving up 93rd in yards per carry on defense, I think Northern Illinois is going to run all over them. This Northern Illinois offensive line is going to absolutely shit on Bowling Green's defensive line. They're just not good at defending the run. This Northern Illinois team did put up 367 yards on the ground last game against UMass. I know it's UMass, but 367 yards is a pretty beast. This Bowling Green team did just struggle to put away Akron last game, and I think Northern Illinois' line is definitely going to get through here on the defensive side of the ball. Sanders, Williams, O'Malley, they have 11 sacks combined. They're constantly in the backfield. I know Bowling Green's more of a throwing team. Like you said, he's gonna definitely have some passes here. But Northern Illinois has a really solid passing defense. They're ranking in the top 20 in most statistics. This should be an easy Northern Illinois win, I think.
An easy Northern Illinois win.
It was my first bet of the week, so I'm comfortable in it.
Andy?
I am the Bowling Green guy, but I'm actually on Northern Illinois. I think in this one, it's a pretty good spot for them. Tyson, the only thing that scares me is what you said, that Connor Bazelak might be able to get a lot done. Tyson Pomachan, who's had a terrible year for UMass, he was throwing a lot on Northern Illinois in that game. Had a pretty good game in that one. But I think that the fact that they're just going to be able to control the game with the run is I mean, they, like he said, 360 yards. I don't care who you're playing. That's a crazy game running the ball. And now you're playing a team with a really bad run defense. Like that comes to controlling the game. It's kind of what they did against Notre Dame. They were able to just kind of take advantage of that and control it. I think they'll do the same here on the road. They clearly can play on the road. So, yeah, I think they can win the game outright.
All right. Next game, and I believe next is Arizona BYU. Are my notes correct on that?
Yep.
All right, Arizona BYU is next.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. So I agree with the market correction on this one because the look-ahead line for this one was Arizona minus 2.5. Obviously, it's flipped the complete other way. It's almost moved 6 points. It moved about 5.5 points. BYU laying 3 at home. And based on what we've seen, it's kind of hard to argue with that. I feel like in most cases, I would say that's got to be an overreaction in week 7, not even halfway through the season yet. But, yeah, I think kind of agree with it. That being said, I don't think I could lay 3 with BYU. I understand why it flipped. I mean, Fafita hasn't looked good. What I said, it's under prop viewers is mine. Under 48.5. Oh, damn, it dropped. It was 49.5 before. All right. So Fafita hasn't looked right. I told you guys that Arizona wouldn't look the same without Fish Magic. Neither of you two wanted to listen to me. So Fafita in the Arizona passing attack hasn't really been there for them. They tried changing play callers. They beat Utah. That didn't really work, though, because they struggled to move the ball against Texas Tech, a defense that's been injured, and that defense hasn't been good. So they struggled to move the ball against Texas Tech. This Arizona offense just not nearly what we thought it would be. BYU's defense has been elite all year. They kind of did catch SMU and Kansas State in bad spots, but, I mean, BYU's defense looks official. So I can't take Arizona. But at the same time, I can't lay the 3 with BYU either because this Arizona defense scares me a little. And, I mean, how long can this Retzi magic last? How long can Retzlaff continue to do this? BYU hasn't had a run game all year. Arizona's been surprisingly good defending the pass. So I don't trust BYU's offense enough to get it going either. So under would be the play for me here.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about it last week. We ran out of time. I thought Tech would win outright just because I have real questions about Arizona's offense. Fafita looks lost. Putting up 22 against Texas Tech is actually pretty bad. It's just hard to put any faith in that team. When you're talking about Arizona's defense being possibly a better unit, then they have some real problems. Since week 1, Arizona's averaging 18.5 points a game.
Wow.
McMillan is still one of the best receivers in football. I'm not going to say that but Fafita's mistakes usually come from him launching balls to him in double coverage. So honestly, they're a confusing football team, kind of like Florida State. They have tons of talent, no execution. And third down conversions are terrible. They were 0-10 against Northern Arizona, 3-10 against Tech last week. Sure, BYU's offensive line is beat up. I think they'll have enough to get through that Arizona defense. I actually like Kyle's under too. It's down to 48 on some books, so I would definitely.
Damn, it was 49.5 last night at like 4 a.m. when I was putting some bets down.
I would catch the hook if you're betting it now. BYU's been great all year, even though they don't really have the talent to stop a receiver like McMillan. Arizona's just prone to huge mistakes right now. Also, that run defense from BYU is going to make Arizona one-dimensional like usual, and Fafita's going to force the issue. BYU's, I think they're going to go 6-0 here. Mormon wives are going to celebrate. We're going to have a good time here.
R-Truth?
I need to go to Fafita rehab at this point.
You do.
I can't. This is the last straw because I will say this.
You're betting them again.
Yeah, up until last week. Up until last week, you could kind of make the case like he's played pretty good defenses, right? Utah, Kansas State, the New Mexico game he looked good, and Northern Arizona I don't really know.
What about Texas Tech, Andy?
That's my point. That's why I said up until last week you could make the case. Last week was bad, right? It was a bad defense, and they didn't do much against them. But BYU hasn't seen anybody either. I will be on their quarterback. The quarterbacks that they have faced have not been good, right? Avery Johnson, we talk about him. He's been.
Whoa.
They've been a rushing team, not a team that wants to throw the ball much. Wyoming, they're awful.
They faced Sabota in Wyoming. I mean, he's a beast.
Wyoming, yeah, they're terrible. Baylor, been terrible. Not a great passing team. I think Fafita, if you're gonna have a game, it's got to be this one. I think that favors Arizona if he can just get it going, and I'm kind of banking on that. But also the spot, right? BYU, they're finally ranked. They're finally getting some respect. They're at home. They're against a team that's underperforming. Kind of feels like a good spot to take the team that's underperforming at a field goal. So I'm on Arizona here. Last straw, though. If Fafita has a bad day, I'm done. We're done.
Next. What's next? Mississippi State, Georgia. I have nothing to say about this. So this is a straight pass. No interest in this.
Yeah. Do we honestly have to entertain this game?
I mean, I was
let Andy talk, and we'll skip to the next one.
Well,
listen. Gun to my head, I bet Georgia. Mississippi State is just terrible. I was on the train early. Also, Michael Van Buren played against Texas in his first game, and now he plays in Georgia. Yeah. So that just sucks. Honestly, though, a freshman quarterback, and those are your first 2 games you play. It's hard to judge him as a player from that. But his supporting cast just sucks. Georgia, except that Alabama game, only allowed 1 touchdown in the other 4. So without that Alabama game, they're giving up 7 points a game total. Mississippi State actually hasn't led an FBS school all year. It's not happening here. The one thing we see, though, are these large spreads not getting covered much. So maybe I lead a first quarter minus 7.5. Georgia's team total is actually at 45. But yeah, under 9.5, maybe a good bet for Mississippi State too. Like you can get minus 9.5 for plus 105. So I just have a hard time seeing they'll do anything.
Andy?
Somebody in the Discord yesterday, I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, they brought it up exactly how I was feeling. Georgia's had slow starts. I think Mississippi State can cover the first half spread. I believe it was, I want to say 21, something of that nature. I didn't put it in there because I didn't bet it, but that would be the bet. If you're going to bet it, Mississippi State first half because they can keep it close early. Georgia slow starts. They didn't score in the first. They haven't really scored in first halves of their games at all. I mean, they've been a very bad first half football team. And Mississippi State against Texas, you brought it up. They competed in that game. They played that game not to get blown out. And I think if they do that again, they'll be fine. So it was either Mississippi State first half or pass for me.
All right, Mississippi State first half or pass. Let's go to the next one. Which is Florida, Tennessee. I really wanted to bet Florida. I think Tennessee's offense is overvalued, man. They got the superstar quarterback everyone's loving, right? And everyone's got Tennessee branded as this high-powered offense.
I said it last week, and I got laughed at. So,
I mean, 14.5. In the last 2 games, Tennessee hasn't looked right. In the Oklahoma and Arkansas games, they averaged 3.69 yards per carry. You could put under 57 up there for me, AJ. So in their last 2 games against Oklahoma and Arkansas, Tennessee's averaging 3.69 yards per carry. 30.9% success rate on the ground. The run game hasn't been there for Tennessee. And by the way, the pass game really hasn't either. So we're talking about back-to-back games where Tennessee's offense hasn't looked good. Oklahoma, okay. That's a great defense. Arkansas's defense isn't that great. It's improved this year. It's not that great. So for all of you like, Florida's defense, they're going to get smoked. I mean, Arkansas's defense was able to put Tennessee in a bit of a coffin. Arkansas's defense. By the way, this Florida run defense is undervalued. Like I was talking last week when I took Florida against UCF. Everyone thought UCF was going to go into the swamp and run the ball all over Florida. I was on the other side of that. And I was kind of right on there. And I was kind of right on that one. Florida's run defense looked pretty good. I mean, they got run on 1 time by Texas A&M. The problem is when it comes to Florida's pass defense, I really don't have a ton of faith. We've seen the data points are so far apart. They look so bad in the Miami game in the opener, and Texas A&M, that defense looks so dysfunctional that it kind of makes me question everything about them, even though they look good in their other games. So, I mean, it'll be under 57 or pass because I'll poke holes in Tennessee's offense. As far as Tennessee's defense goes, I'm on board, man. That unit's really good. They've struggled against the pass a little bit, but really, I mean, it was just the 1 game against Arkansas. Granted, they've played some questionable offenses, so I really don't know. Under or pass?
Yeah, I'll take the next one here. You just said it. Tennessee hasn't played anybody, which kind of made me reevaluate how I feel about them, right? They were so dominant against Chattanooga, Kent State, NC State. And then Oklahoma kind of limited their run game, which shot them down a little bit. And then, they had 2.9 yards per carry. I thought I was wrong on that. Yeah, 2.9 yards per carry against Oklahoma. And then last week they just did the opposite. They were running pretty well, couldn't throw the ball. So very weird. Kind of have to reevaluate. They got a young team too. But they're at home. This is their first home SEC game of this level. It's a revenge game. They lost to Florida last year. That was a big thing. Last year with Joe Milton. Now they have obviously a better quarterback. 2 teams that are coming off opposite spots. I'm just playing Tennessee on that, right? Florida pulled up an upset at home. Now they're going on the road playing a team that just got upset on the road. I'm just playing that, purely playing that. I don't know. I don't love the number. I was hoping it would be more like 10, which is probably what I think it belongs at, but I'll take Tennessee anyway.
All right. Go ahead, Scoop.
Yeah, like I said, got laughed at when I said Nico was a bit overrated and Arkansas would shut him down.
Well, hold on. Overrated.
That's exactly what they did.
He's a freshman.
Okay.
So are you saying he's overrated as a prospect or overrated as a quarterback right now?
Right now.
Okay. Then you were right in saying that.
Okay. He's a good quarterback, but he's not like a Heisman freshman winning quarterback. Let's pump the brakes. I think Yenti and Travis Hunter are 1 and 2 right now, which is pretty awesome. It's been a quarterback award for the most part. That being said, Arkansas had the right team to beat them, I think. I'm not sure Florida does. Florida beat Mississippi State and UCF. We just talked about Mississippi State. But UCF looks to be worse than we all thought. So, no, I don't like Florida much. And, I don't like Mertz much. He's an okay quarterback. But I think Tennessee absolutely destroys Florida. They're going to run all over them. Florida basically did enough the last 2 games to save Billy Napier's job. Dylan Sampson, 2+ touchdowns, even odds, plus 100. I bet that. I'm taking that also. He has 12 on the season, and Florida is the 2nd worst rushing defense in the SEC. On the other side, Florida's offensive line has been pretty good, but Tennessee has 38 tackles for a loss. They're 4th in scoring defense, 1st and 3rd down defense, 3rd in the red zone percentage. So if there's a game for Nico, it's here, whether it's a scrambling ability or going deep. Florida gives up 2 huge chunk plays through the air constantly. So Tennessee's going to blow them out, I feel. So I have Sampson over 2+ touchdowns for Sampson, and I have Tennessee just winning this game.
Sampson 2+ touchdowns. Okay. And and Tennessee winning this game as in like a same game parlay?
Yeah. No, I just have them separately minus 14.5.
AJ, that's the Texas Longhorns orange.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
Shut the hell up. Who gives a rat's ass about the shade of the orange? You people need to...
Look how off that orange is.
Look at
Oh my god! I mean, what am I looking
That's
at?
disgusting.
I mean,
Dude, stick to the NFL, buddy.
Look at-
really go to hell. I mean, honestly.
Look,
Go back to your tackle props, which you're really good at.
Oh, there
There
we
you
go.
go.
I updated it for you. Actually,
All right,
that does
next
look better,
next
I will say.
freaking game. All right, what's next?
This is.
Is it Washington State Fresno?
Yeah, I was
I'm
trying to
feeling
remind
it.
myself why I put this game on the sheet, and then I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
like this.
I think Kyle will want to talk about it.
No, I didn't bet it, but I'm open. I think this is a Fresno upset spot.
I bet this. This is actually going to be a Pac-12 matchup in a couple years.
Wait, hold on. Are you on Fresno, Scoop?
Yeah, I took Fresno State here.
Dude, I'm with you. I'm with
Both
you.
of these teams are coming off a bye, actually. Both of them coming off absolute blowout losses. The thing with Washington State is, okay, they got blown out with by Boise with Gentry, who's just rolling over anyone. But this team also gave up 52 to San Jose State. The issue with the UNLV game with Fresno is just the turnovers. They put up decent yardage. They're actually 27th in the nation in passing offense. It also, didn't help that Bridges was out on that defensive line. They couldn't, have any kind of defensive pressure. The Washington State looks like they're going to be down to their second string in both safety positions. They don't have any starting safeties on this team right now. And this is with Mikey Keene airing at the ball. That's going to be an issue. Washington State's already giving up 292 yards passing a game, 127th, and they're giving up 468 total yards a game, which is one of the worst in the country. I like Fresno State here. I think they win this one outright. I don't like Washington's secondary at all, and them missing a couple pieces, I think they're just going to air it all over them.
Yeah, same. And I'm going to add this one. I didn't bet this one because I was unsure. The line made me uncomfortable. Over 3 here. Like Scoop said, this Washington State defense has been so bad, and I don't even think people realize how bad because some of the final scores are deceiving. Ready for this? Washington State's best defensive performance this year was against San Jose State. Against San Jose State. Hold on. I actually want to show you guys the numbers because they're insane. All right. 1 second. Take me 2 seconds. All right. So Washington's best defensive performance this year was against San Jose State, a game which they only almost lost as 11.5 point favorites or 12.5 point favorites. They allowed almost 500 yards. It was 491 yards almost 400 yards. No, wow, I was right. They're allowing 450 yards a game. How about that? They're allowing about 450 yards per game. This defense is bad. Like Scoop said, they're a little injured as well. And it's a little bit of a buy low spot on Fresno State. They got smoked by UNLV, but that game, they were down like 30-0 immediately before we even got our bearings of what was going on in that game. They were down 21 points. So once you're down 21 points, what happens from then on? Your game plan changes, everything changes, and that was Haj Malik Williams' first game as the starter of UNLV. I don't think Fresno was expecting UNLV to come out and throw the ball. He came out and was making throws, and based on what we've seen from UNLV up to that point, I don't think they could have been prepared for that. So yeah, this shouldn't be plus 3.5. I'm going to add this one, Fresno State. Andy?
I'm going to be on the other side. I do like what you guys said about the UNLV thing with them throwing the ball, but also before that, you have to mention they haven't faced any quarterbacks, and I will say Mateer has been pretty good for Washington State. He's been much better than maybe I expected. The teams that they've played, Fresno, played Michigan. We know what their issues are. Sacramento State, that's an FCS school. New Mexico State, they can't throw the ball. We talked about them the other day. New Mexico, they can kind of throw it, but not really. They had 6.5 yards per attempt, which is pretty good. And now you're taking a huge step up for them in terms of the offense they're facing in Mateer. So I'm a little nervous about the defense for Washington State, but Mikey Keene in that UNLV game, I know they were down by so much, but he got banged up in that one. And now they did have a bye week to rest him up, but who knows what's going to happen there. So I'm just leaning Washington State, but these guys are clearly way more in on this game. This is just kind of a lean for me. They really like Fresno, so
I wouldn't say really like it, but I was leaning Fresno, and Scoop gave me the confidence to go ahead and place the bet. I just shared it in the Discord. I put a 0.75 units on Fresno, so that's how confident I am to make it one of my smaller bets. So all right, let's move on to the next game, which is
World beaters, Vanderbilt.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, Andy, what do you think about this one?
The line moving scaring the crap out of me because I'm sorry if
It's disrespectful.
Look, I've been disrespectful to Vanderbilt to this point. I want to give them some respect because that was awesome what they did last week, and the way they play the way they're playing offense is really hard to stop. But Kentucky doesn't let you run the ball. I mean, they didn't let Georgia run the ball. They didn't really let Ole Miss run the ball. I think Diego Pavia is gonna follow up that performance. Not really. So I'm just gonna lean Kentucky here. The number is moving for Vanderbilt here. It was 15.5 at one point. It's now 12.5. So people like Vanderbilt. People are buying in. I'm not there yet on them. This is a tough spot. Going into Kentucky and running the ball does not happen. The best teams in the conference don't do it. So I'd be very surprised if Pavia and Vanderbilt can do it and follow it up. Plus, I don't even know what to say. It's the biggest letdown spot in college football today. I mean, they just beat Alabama at home. We all saw what happened. Like, now you're going on the road against Kentucky, a team that's not necessarily looked at very highly. Like, it's a tough spot to follow that up. But I'd be impressed if they could do it. But I think they're going to get beat by a couple of touchdowns here.
Scoop?
Yeah, call me a square. I'm with the public here. How about Diego Pavia? The guy's a gamer. Vanderbilt was 0-60 against AP top 5 teams headed into that game. Listen, they just had everything working for them that game. Not to mention they were 12 for 18 on third down. Now they're catching, I bet this at 13.5 against Kentucky. I think that's a bit disrespectful. Vanderbilt's 2 losses were a combined 7 points. I know they did lose to Georgia Southern. And I know Kentucky, after that South Carolina loss, they've been solid. They almost beat a number 1 team themselves. They beat Ole Miss. The whole world's going to be on Vandy here. I can see why. The last time they played here a couple years ago, Vandy actually won with a way worse team than this. Kentucky's defense has been great, but their offense just isn't that good. They're averaging 22 points a game, which is the worst in the SEC. They're the second worst total offense, only behind Oklahoma. I know that's partially because of Ole Miss and Georgia, but Vandegrift isn't good by any means. He's inaccurate, and their running game isn't much better. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. Even if Vanderbilt's defense isn't the same as Kentucky, I think they'll make enough stops to hang in there. This number, I think, is just too high, and I can't bet against the god Diego Pavia right now.
I'm with Andy. I bet Kentucky as it's one of my smaller bets, but I laid the 12.5. That's what I got it at. This Kentucky defense, nobody's doing anything on it. They shut Ole Miss down. They shut Georgia down. Nobody is moving the ball in Kentucky right now. Specifically, nobody is running the ball in Kentucky, like Andy said. Vanderbilt, 8th in the country in run frequency. This is a team that needs to run the ball, similar to that New Mexico State team with Jerry Kill last year and Diego Pavia. They need to run the ball, and Ole Miss couldn't run the ball in Kentucky. Georgia couldn't run the ball in Kentucky. You're going to take Vanderbilt to do it, coming off the biggest win in program history. By the way, Kentucky's coming off a bye. This is the ultimate letdown spot. And look, we have a short memory when it comes to sports. This Vanderbilt team just got beat on the road by Georgia State. So, yeah, they upset Alabama. They lost to Georgia State before that. So, yeah, I'm not big on this Kentucky offense, but Georgia State hung 36 on this Vanderbilt defense. So, yeah, I think Kentucky wins comfortably in a letdown spot. Vanderbilt's really going to struggle to move the ball. Next. Syracuse, NC State. I didn't skip this one. I looked at it for a few minutes. I don't understand the line. NC State has looked so bad, but clearly Sharp Money thinks the Wolfpack's live in this game because it's been bet down from 3.5 all the way down. It's down to 2 now. You can't even get 2.5 anymore. So clearly I'm not seeing this right because people are thinking NC State's going to win the game. So this is a straight pass for me. Are you guys seeing angles? Look, our graphic has it at +3. We made our graphics this morning. So, like, this line is on the move. People are betting NC State. There's money coming in on NC State. I don't know why. To me, Syracuse is the significantly better team. There's not one thing. To be honest, I don't think there's any aspect of this NC State team that I find appealing. They do have some decent defensive numbers against the pass, and that is what Syracuse does. So maybe. But no, don't even put Syracuse up. It's a straight pass for me. I have no interest.
Yeah, nobody's on NC State, so like Vanderbilt, that makes me want. I mean, unlike Vanderbilt, I just can't take NC State. The offense is just too gross, even though Syracuse does give up a ton. The biggest thing here is what kind of NC State defense shows up against the pass. They've been doing decently all year. And McCord's going to throw the ball a ton. McCord's second in yards per game and has the most completions per game. But you see, he does make a ton of dumb mistakes forcing the ball. NC State at night, fun place to play. It's loud, but UNLV also was a really tough place to play. It was harder competition. It was traveling to the West Coast. I'm going to take Syracuse. Obviously, CJ Bailey's the quarterback probably for the rest of the year, since McCall, I don't think he's going to come back the rest of the year. He's probably done. Bailey did pretty well against Wake Forest, actually, but I mean, listen, this team was up 10 late in the fourth and still blew that game at home. So their defense isn't as good as it was last year. I would lean Syracuse.
I would as well. I think this is a good spot for Syracuse. And also, like he said, NC State defensive numbers have looked good against the pass, but against who? Hank Bachmeier, who you guys
big game Hank?
Big game Hank. Like they did shut down Big Game Hank, but they lost the game. And then Ethan Hampton, that's cool. Then Klubnik got him. That was the one game La Tech had. I think that was the game Baker played. They had a good passing game against them. We know what Tennessee did against them. Like against good quarterbacks, like they're getting lit up in those games. So they're facing a good quarterback from all intensive purposes. I'll call Kyle McCord a good quarterback. So yeah, I don't see the angle for NC State other than maybe them being at home, but like that doesn't do enough for me. It's just a building. That's my thing. So, yeah, I'll take Syracuse here and hope they don't. Kyle McCord doesn't throw dumbass interceptions like he did against Stanford.
You know what's cool about having a following, by the way, is things catch on because that's not a thing. Big game Hank. We just say that on the show. Yeah. Someone sent me a DM last week. Like some people send me their picks and they ask what they think, and they were like, sent me like a brief description of each pick, and it was Wake Forest against, I think, Louisiana. And he was like, I think Big Game Hank could come through. Like, seriously, type Big Game Hank as if that was his nickname. Like, that's like we made that up. So Iowa State, West Virginia, and Morgantown. A lot of people have asked about this game. A lot of people want to bet this game. Personally, I think West Virginia can beat them, but I mean, there's no question no hesitation. Iowa State has looked so much more impressive than West Virginia this year. I know a lot of people have Iowa State branded as a defensive program. I like Rocco Becht. I like that offense too. So it's kind of hard for me to get there with West Virginia, but I kind of want to hear what you guys have to say. I also want to see what the poll does. Is everyone taking Iowa State here? I want to see what the poll does too. So why don't you guys go first?
I see a lot of people on West Virginia personally. I'm just not a fan of this West Virginia team. I think the Oklahoma State game, they just showed Oklahoma State is not in position to beat kind of anyone. It was their loss in a row, which again, Ollie Gordon couldn't run on West Virginia. They're a decent run team, but nothing crazy. They're a little better than average. I love Ohio State. I do not love Ohio State. I love Iowa State. I loved Iowa State since their run last year in the NCAA tournament with Otzelberger, great coach. I'm excited.
The real coach is on this side, brother.
This team in Rocco Becht is going to pass all over West Virginia. Their secondary is god awful. He had 277 yards against Baylor, whose secondary is actually better than West Virginia's. Jalen Jackson should find some holes, though West Virginia's, like I said, D-line is actually pretty impressive. But that secondary, man, is just really, really bad. Even if they hold down this offense a bit, Iowa State is 13th in yards allowed. And they still are the best scoring defense in the Big 12, even though, I like their offense better. But their run defense isn't great, which is all West Virginia does, which is the only kind of concerning thing. But I think Iowa State's offense is just miles better since they have a more balanced attack. So, like you said, Rocco Becht, great quarterback. And the big thing with West Virginia is they give up 15.2 yards of a completion, which is in the bottom 5 of the country. They're constantly giving up big chunk plays. I like Iowa State here.
Andy?
In terms of, I like West Virginia. In terms of Iowa State's defense, we know Matt Campbell always has good defenses, but they haven't actually had to prove it yet. I mean, the offenses on this list are laughable. They started against North Dakota. That's an FCS school. Iowa. We know about Iowa. Arkansas State, Houston, Baylor. None of those teams inspire you. Now, you might be thinking West Virginia was having trouble on offense. Well, Garrett Green all of a sudden is slinging the ball and they're able to run the ball. So, like, if they're able to put together that type of performance at home against Iowa State, a team that I know the defense is good, but there's no way it's this dominant that the numbers. I mean, the numbers are unreal. Obviously, they've played nobody. This is as Toast would say, step up in class. That could shock you early. So I do like West Virginia. I think we're getting a little crazy on the Iowa State love. Iowa State's a good team, but again, they haven't played anybody and they have to prove it. So I'm just banking on that West Virginia the last 2 weeks has finally looked like the offense I expected them to, and I think a lot of people expected them to. They were third in terms of odds to win this conference, and they're in it, right? They've won two back-to-back Big 12 games to start. So I think West Virginia, we're finally getting the team that I and a lot of others expected. So West Virginia.
I think if I was to bet this game, and I put a lot of thought into this game too, because a lot of people asked about it. It's a cool one on paper. I think Iowa State is the better team pretty significantly, but I don't know if they necessarily win comfortably here, and I don't want to lay a full 3. So what I think the safest bet is, in my opinion, is just take the over. Like Scoop said, Iowa State should have no problem scoring on West Virginia's defense, which has been definitely a disappointment so far this year, the West Virginia defense. And this West Virginia offense, even though I have all the faith in the world in Iowa State's defense, I think they're probably a top 10, top 15 defense in the country. This West Virginia offense is so tricky, man. I mean, obviously, you have to account for the rushing attack because this is an offense that wants to run the ball. But the second you sell out to try and take the West Virginia run game away, Garrett Green can make big plays. He does all the time. So they're not really branded as a passing team. They're branded as a run-first offense because that's what they do. But Garrett Green is more than capable of making big plays through the air. So in Morgantown, this West Virginia offense is just too tricky for me to expect Iowa State to go in there and keep them out of the end zone. So I do think Iowa State wins, and I guess if you put a gun to my head, I don't even know as far as the side. At -3, it feels like a coin flip. But I think it gets over the total, though. All right, next. Minnesota UCLA. All right, I don't necessarily have the best reasons for it. I feel like Minnesota's about to get upset in this one. It just feels like the perfect sell high spot for the Gophers. For Max Brosmer, right? He's had 6 good quarters of football. I mean, really 5 good quarters of football. Are we just going to forget all the quarters of football we saw from him before that? I mean, hold on. Sorry, my contact's freaking out right now. He was really struggling there for a second. Now he's going to fly across the country out to the West Coast and play a UCLA defense that I honestly think is undervalued. UCLA's offense has been so bad that it's kind of overshadowing that their defense has looked all right. I think Brosmer is going to struggle, and I think with this line -4, I think people have really, the market's overreacting to what we saw from Brosmer the last 5 quarters of football. I think the Minnesota's offense is really going to struggle. We got a total down here at 39.5, so odds makers agree that we're looking at most likely a low-scoring game here. I'm not laying 4 on the road with Minnesota. I think they're going to struggle to move the football. Do I think UCLA is able to score points consistently in this game? No, but I also think Minnesota is going to struggle as well. So I'd lean towards the UCLA side. Didn't bet it because UCLA is just truly trash.
I agree 100% actually. What the opposite of what I just said about Iowa State is, what I said about them was that they've played nobody. I got to give credit to UCLA. They've played an unreal amount of quarterbacks. I mean, they played Shager to start the season. Then they played Curtis Rourke at Indiana, LSU with Nussmeier, Gabriel at Oregon, Aller at Penn State. Like, those are sick quarterbacks to face the first 5 games of the year. Now I think it's a bit of a spot for Brosmer to come in. He's feeling good. Everybody's obviously they're feeling good after beating USC at home. This is obviously a clear letdown spot, but also he's the worst quarterback they faced. I know statistically it's Shager, but I mean, Shager didn't have a good game against them, so that doesn't matter. Shager had 5.4 yards per attempt. So if Brosmer's the second worst quarterback they face, maybe he gets 6 yards per attempt. So I really don't like this Minnesota offense in this game. And obviously, I mean, UCLA's offense I thought moved a lot better early in the game against Penn State with the other quarterbacks. So if he's in there and he's playing, then I think that they can move the ball enough and control the game to win it. Be a very low scoring game. I think this UCLA team is about as bad as you can get in terms of a Big Ten team, but this is definitely a spot to take them. Also, I know we're going to talk about it with the other games. The travel is a concern for me. Minnesota going from playing their home
time
games
zones.
going to UCLA. Traveling those time zones is very tough, and I said that
you're
the
a
other day.
time zone guy, bro.
The time zones will get you, and Minnesota, I would guess. I don't have every single game Minnesota played in the last 3 years in front of me. I guess this is the farthest they've traveled for a non-bowl game. So, this is definitely a tough travel spot. But yeah, overall letdown spot.
Yeah, Andy's becoming a time zone guy.
He's the one who originated it, actually. Everyone bought off of him. Yeah, I hate to do it. I'm on UCLA here. We're all on UCLA. Minnesota had one of the biggest wins in their program last week. They controlled that game for the most part. When it was 17-10 USC, I thought that game was over, but Miller Moss threw that pick, and Brosmer, Darius Taylor had a solid drive to tie it. And that long drive to end the game with 4th and goal was an awesome game. Now, UCLA, yeah, listen, Justin Martin did a pretty good job against Penn State. I mean, what more can you expect from him that game? He didn't throw any picks. I know he had 167 yards passing, but still, when you see how UCLA couldn't run the ball, that wasn't bad. But they also played a great defensive game against Penn State. They shut down this Penn State rushing attack. They only put up 2.8 yards against them. And look, kind of like Andy said, look who UCLA played this year. 9 Indiana, then at LSU. They had against Oregon and at Penn State the last 4 games. They have a combined 20-1 record. So now they get to be home. Minnesota coming off a high, traveling west hasn't been great. Brosmer isn't throwing the ball this game. This whole game is predicated on the run from Minnesota. Something that UCLA has done really well is defending the run. The issue I have is Garbers may play. I know his ankle was heavily taped up, but I would rather him stay out of this game and let Justin roll. But yeah, I like UCLA here. +4, Minnesota coming across, and UCLA defending the run well. I think this is going to be a UCLA spot.
Wow, it's a sweep on the program for the Bruins. I thought it was going to be like an ugly pick for me. And actually, the polls on the Bruins, too. So maybe UCLA a little bit of a public dog, which sounds crazy. All right, let's move on to the next one. Kansas State, Colorado. Kansas State rolls. I got a -3, but I paid for it. I got -120. So I got a juice to -3. First off, I feel like you always have to, when you're talking about a Colorado game, you always have to preface that you're not a Colorado hater. I had Colorado last week. I don't hate Colorado or anything. Not last week. I had them in Scoop maybe a little bit. So first off, let's give some credit to Colorado for the defense. The defense looks greatly improved. They've been playing excellent defense against the pass. Defense against the run has been better. It's not amazing, but it's been better. If you look at the numbers, Colorado is looking like an above-average defense in college football right now, truly. That being said, you need better than an above-average defense to stop Kansas State's run game. They're one of the best rushing attacks in the country. They might have, next to Ohio State, Ohio State and Penn State, let's say, the best RB duo in the country. They got a solid offensive line. Their quarterback, Avery Johnson, can also run it. This is a dynamic rushing attack that's very difficult to stop. There's very few defenses in the country that I would take to stop the Kansas State run game. Kansas State's going to run the ball on Colorado. I don't care that their defense is improved. They're going to steamroll them on the ground. That being said, on the other side of the ball, obviously we got Shedeur Sanders, very high-powered Colorado passing attack at home where he's been better. Kansas State's actually been playing solid defense against the pass. In their last 3 games, they're allowing just 6.93 yards per attempt and a 38.8% success rate per dropback. That's great defensive numbers. Want to know who they played? Arizona, BYU, Oklahoma State. Now, are any of those 3 teams on the level of Colorado's passing attack? No. But that's 3 teams that we know have a quarterback that can throw the ball. We've seen Fafita, what he's capable of doing. Bowman, we've seen him throw the ball. I mean, he threw like 5 touchdowns a couple times, I believe, last year. Or no, remember, that's one time. And BYU, Retzlaff is having a great season. So we've seen Kansas State play great defense against the pass recently, and obviously Colorado isn't going to have any run support because Kansas State is one of the best run defenses in the country. So I think Kansas State rolls them here.
Same. I'm going to same. Exactly the same. Pretty much what he said, copy and pasted. Also, Dylan Edwards revenge game. He's plus 140 to score a touchdown. I didn't bet it yet, but I probably will before game time. If you don't know him, he transferred from Colorado last year. He's at Kansas State now. He's their second back. I think he can, obviously, this is a spot where they're going to want to get him a touchdown, especially if it's a blowout, which I think it could be. I wouldn't bet on that, but Yeah, I think that they're just going to run the ball all over him. They haven't faced a rush attack like this, and the challenge is that Avery Johnson, when he's not throwing the stupidest interceptions or making the dumbest plays imaginable, what he does present is he can run the ball all over you. A lot like Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. They play kind of a similar style. So yeah, I could see that happening against Colorado. They're just not ready for that.
Scoop.
Yeah, obviously love this Colorado team. Like I said, great coach, great defense. But last two games, they have been a great defense. You do know how much of an Avery Johnson fan I am, though. He's, like I said earlier, 6'8", 212 pounds, chiseled body, 10-pack, beautiful hair, masculine, absolutely cut. Sure, Colorado. They got lucky in that Baylor game. They should have lost. Maybe this Colorado's team's underrated. They're kind of switching to a run game more, Colorado, which is what they should have done a while ago. Do I think Kansas State's a better team? Yes, of course I do. I think Kansas State should win. The problem is Kansas State's one of the worst teams in giving up big plays. They're kind of weak in the secondary. Look what happened when Kansas State went to BYU a couple weeks ago and at this point. So earlier in this week, I was on Colorado. I think when we talked about this game at the +3.5. Yeah, +3.5. I don't know if Kansas State can handle a huge road environment, but UCF's wins, I think it lost a bit of luster since UCF hasn't looked good at all, especially that 2-score loss to Florida. Earlier this week, I don't know. This feels like a shootout to me. Both teams are averaging 31 points a game. Both teams just put up 40s. Kansas State against Oklahoma State, which is a comparable defense to Colorado at this point. I don't think Colorado's defense has magically found it. I know they've been a lot better, but Colorado can hang points on anyone from their passing game. So, I don't buy the UCF game. I don't think their defense has improved. I think this is going to be a shootout both ways. If I had to lean aside, I would still lean Colorado, but I really like the over in this game.
See? People accusing us of being Colorado haters. I bet Colorado the last two games. I haven't faded them since week 2 in Nebraska. I'm telling you, there's something about Colorado. If you bet against them, that means you're a hater.
Yeah. Somebody just asked, UCF has a better rush attack than Kansas State. Why couldn't they run on Colorado? Well,
they did run.
They were punched in the face about down. What was it? 14.
Hold on, they did run the ball in Colorado.
They ran, but they had to abandon it at one point. So the numbers might not look perfect, but
they had a 50% rushing success rate in the game. They were running the ball in Colorado.
They really stopped doing it because what did they get? That game was like 28-7.
Yeah, well, they were down. They had to abandon the run, and they sacked KJ Jefferson 5 times in the game. So, it looks like they only had 4 yards per carry. They were averaging like over 6.5 yards per carry. They were running the ball in Colorado.
Listen, I have a strong feeling this is going to be like a 70-point game, honestly.
Yeah, I think 66-4. Kansas State. No. Next up.
Safeties? Wow.
2
safeties would be a pretty amazing thing.
I have nothing to say on Boise State, Hawaii. I don't know why you even put it in here, Andy.
Come on. Why did I put it in there?
Yeah, go ahead, talk. I don't want to talk about this game.
Hawaii's covering. Hawaii's been covered. Hawaii is the best. This is the best run defense other than Oregon that Boise State has seen. I'm not saying Ashton Genty's going to get stopped. He could probably still average 7 yards per carry. But they've shown that if they are winning by a lot, he's not going to play. He did not play the second half of their game last week. And that would completely take Boise State's offense and put him. Then you'd need Maddox Madsen to keep up a blowout. I don't think he's going to do that. Hawaii should be able to throw the ball. This Boise State secondary has been very bad this year. Shager can throw the ball. I know that Scoop's about to tell you why, and he has that. So I think that this team can throw the ball all over the place and keep it close. Or in a blowout, it would be a backdoor cover anyway. Because Ashton Genty probably only going to play the first half. He'll probably run for 200 yards and then sit. They'll be up 28-0, 35-0, and then a backdoor cover by Hawaii. This all game also in Hawaii, not the easiest place to go travel and play.
So fun stat about Genty. He has 30 carries against an 8-man box. He's averaging 8.9 yards a carry in the 8-man box. That's absurd. I don't know if any rushing defense can actually stop them. This game, I have 2 prop bets. One I actually bet. His rushing over-unders have become insane. This is 183.5. I still like the over for Genty. He's going to run all over Hawaii. Boise State should absolutely kill Hawaii. I don't know if they're going to. Hawaii has 101 offensive rating, 115th defensive rating. Boise State's 11th in offense and 25th in defense, but that defense is predicated on a run defense. Obviously, Genty and Boise State, they're first in yards per carry. it's just gonna be a field day for Genti. But I don't know. I usually don't touch going against Hawaii in Hawaii just because it's a 6-hour flight for Boise State. It's 4 time zones away. I know it's a time zone thing, Andy. And the stadium's literally 2 miles from the closest beach. So the issue with Boise State is their pass defense has just looked really, really, really bad. Back-to-back games, they've given up 300 plus, and that's to Mateer, who mostly likes to run the ball. And Spencer Petras. They're 123rd in pass defense. Shager is 27th in the country with 65 passing yards a game. So, yeah, the second prop is Shager over 247.5 yards a game. Boise State's offense is so good also that Hawaii is just going to play catch up, like Andy said. They're just going to throw the ball. I think it's a great bet. I think Shager easily goes over this.
All right, can we get off this game, dude?
Yeah, Genti Heisman.
Just trying to make some money. I don't know what you want from me.
I want to talk about the Red River rivalry for the first time in the SEC. We're on to the final 4 games here. And I like Oklahoma in this one. I was thinking about betting the money line, do some gambling, but in my opinion, you should not be laying more than 2 touchdowns in this game. That's always crazy. It doesn't matter what team is significantly better. It's always a close game. Texas was pretty significantly favored last year as well. Oklahoma beat them outright. Venables definitely has some aces up his sleeve for this one. Are you guys with me on the Sooners?
Yep, 100%. I think Hawkins can also run the ball today. He's going to be in the underdog that I did, I believe. If I remember correctly, he's in there. Yeah, I think that they can just the rivalry aspect always gets thrown into it as well. And I do think that's a part of it. This game is always wacky, weird, crazy. Like, I think Texas came in as favorites last year, lost outright on the craziest comeback drive that Dylan Gabriel or anybody has ever done. I think you could see something similar, like a weird game that just winds up being a field goal.
17 now. 17. I'm taking.
Yeah. So I mean, Texas is, look, don't get me wrong. Texas is great. I think this is a look ahead spot as well, although it is a rivalry game. They have Georgia next week, so there is some of that.
You're not looking ahead from this game.
I'm not saying they're looking ahead to it. I'm just mentioning they do have Georgia on deck, so like that is a bigger game in terms of actual meaning for the playoff. Yeah, I just think the Oklahoma defense will step up and at least keep it somewhat close. As this gets higher, it just gets more ridiculous to me. But yeah, and also Quinn Ewers' first game off an injury and a bye week, so he hasn't played in a while. It could be rusty early.
All right, I just took a 17 on DraftKings.
So yeah, just look, there's 17s like everywhere. It makes me want to take them. Oklahoma's offense is just so bad. They've outscored. I mean, Texas has outscored opponents 225-35 through 5 games. Statistically, they're top 10 offense and defense. Oklahoma's ranked 121st in total offense and 42nd in total defense. But listen, only twice in the last 25 years has a double-digit favorite covered at the venue. Those teams are 0-5 in covering the spread the last 12 years. I know Hawkins Jr. is a true freshman going to keep that trend alive. Oklahoma's 110th in sacks allowed. Their offensive line is just really, really bad. And it's going to be rough against the Texas team that can cause a lot of pressure up front. I know we're analytically driven. We're an analytically driven community. That's what sports betting is. You back up stuff with stats and probabilities, but it's so hard to cap these games because a lot of times stats just don't matter for this, especially in this rivalry. That being said, if I had to make a bet, I would take Texas just because I'm looking at the numbers. Quinn Ewers back. I know Texas is at home, but they are playing at the Cotton Bowl. Crazy things have happened in this Red River rivalry, so I'm not placing a bet. The series is too volatile for me to trust any kind of statistic or trend. It's wild. But with the 7, I guess a 17 now, I don't even know. That's a lot of freaking points for this rivalry.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Penn State, USC. My number's gone here. I got USC at 5.5. It's down to 3.5 now, which sucks. Crossed over 4, which is obviously a key number. So for those of you that didn't get it, didn't watch the video or see the bet, it's kind of gone now. I wouldn't switch sides. At over a field goal, my pick for the game would still be USC. If I didn't have a bet down now, it would definitely either be a small bet or a pass, though. You can put USC up for me. So first of all, I'm not fading the Penn State defense at all. We've seen this year in and year out under James Franklin. They've proven to me that when Penn State's defense looks good, it's for real. It's not fool's gold against a bad schedule. I'm cool with the Penn State defense, although they do play in the Big Ten. I do think Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley are able to score some points in this game, but not because there's anything wrong with the Penn State defense, just because they've got explosive weapons that I think they're capable. I think they're capable of making plays that it doesn't matter who the defense is. We saw some of those plays in the LSU game. It's the Penn State offense that I'm willing to question. I mean, how many years have we seen this where Penn State's offense looks great when they play some bad teams, and then they start seeing some elite defenses, and then we all have the same reaction, like, oh, in the Michigan game, in the Ohio State game, we're like, oh, no, same old Penn State, can't move the ball. So I'm not sold on the Penn State offense. The only decent defense that Penn State has seen so far was Illinois. That's the only defense so far where you can even say is decent that they've seen. And that game was at home in Happy Valley. And by the way, the game was 14-7 with 2 minutes left. Granted, Penn State controlled that game start to finish. That score's a little bit misleading, but it was a 7-point game at home in Happy Valley, 14-7 with 2 minutes left. So Penn State wasn't exactly going off offensively. They were running the ball, kept shooting themselves in the foot, but with 2 minutes left in the game, they had 14 points at home against Illinois. This USC defense looks pretty good. It's way better than it was last year. They held LSU to just 20 points. LSU is currently sitting at number 1 in the country in effective pass. Advanced Metrics has LSU as the most efficient, most explosive passing attack in the country. USC on a neutral site held them to just 20 points. And look, about this narrative that USC isn't ready or can't handle the Big Ten, right? I've heard it several times this week. Couldn't you say the same exact thing for Penn State against Lincoln Riley and this offense? I mean, in all seriousness, keep in mind, Penn State has played in the Big Ten, and it's not that I think the Big Ten's a bad conference. It's just you don't see many Heisman Trophy winning quarterback passing attacks. The only team that Penn State sees that resembles that sort of talent offensively is Ohio State, and they get their asses beat every single year. So when's the last time you saw Penn State beat a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback type of talent? I mean, they played Ole Miss in the bowl game last year. They got their ass beat in that one too. Bowl game, who cares? But what I'm saying here is the narrative that's getting thrown around, USC can't handle the Big Ten. I think you could take that same brush and paint Penn State. Be like, I don't think Penn State can hang with these West Coast offenses that are putting up 40, 50 points a game, and that NFL receivers and NFL quarterbacks. Now, look, Miller Moss has been a little shaky recently, but that he's supposed to be that guy. Penn State doesn't see many of, quote-unquote, that guys. So, yeah, I think USC can win outright. I have it at +5.5.
Yeah, what makes everyone want to take Penn State? Was it the less than 3 yards of carry against UCLA? Maybe the Illinois game that was a one-score game in the fourth? How about the Bowling Green game when they won by 7? I don't see all the hype for Penn State right now. They have a great defense. Their offense is garbage right now. I'm sorry. I know you have Singleton and Allen against a run defense that's averaging 5 yards of carry in Big Ten play, but they're going to have success against this Penn State secondary. That cross-country thing is going to come into play. I'm sorry. East Coast teams playing all the way on the West Coast hasn't worked out well. Everybody's on Penn State. They saw this Minnesota game with UCLA and say, well, UCLA just isn't any good. I said it earlier, this UCLA team is the most traveled team in the country right now. That's what happens in the Big Ten. You're just going all over the fucking place. Excuse my language. I mean, Penn State has been on the road since hasn't been on the road since week 1. Week 1, they haven't been on the road. And then they played an hour away in West Virginia. You saw the Minnesota game, but did you see the Penn State game too? Yeah, UCLA traveled across country, and they didn't look great against them. So Drew Aller looks okay. He's not a huge passer. He takes care of the ball. So can the Trojans' run defense slow down Penn State's rushing attack? Sure, they suck. I think they'll be able to, though. I think they're going to have success. I think they're going to have success against Penn State's secondary. On paper, sure, Penn State's built to win this game. They have a stronger defensive line. They have a more productive rushing attack. Their margin to victory aren't great. It's concerning. So I don't think this team's been tested yet. Plus, the Trojans lead the nation in third down conversion rate. They lead the nation in EPA per play. So don't be looking at numbers and being like, oh, well, Penn State's obviously the best team in the land. Their best part of the team is their front seven, which USC is going to throw the ball. I'm sorry, they have the best success rate on passing downs too. USC is built to win this game, so I think they win this game outright.
Wow. All right, I like it.
I agree. I also think they win the game outright. I think the travel is not my number one reasoning, but I do think that it makes a big deal. Penn State has not done this. They don't do this. Teams in the Big Ten usually don't do this. They don't travel out to play anybody of this, not only this stature, but of this much travel like USC. Now they're obviously forced to do it because they're in the same conference, but it is noteworthy that you can't just gloss over it and say, well, it's nothing. These are still young guys that are traveling, and they probably haven't done this much in their life in terms of going to play football in a different place. It's the exact reason that if you're watching Missouri UMass today, UMass might have a good start to that game because like Missouri's not used to going to UMass, weird facilities, all that travel. That's not usually how it goes. So that does make an impact, but also like they're not used to this style of play. Kyle nailed that. I think that the way that Lincoln Riley tries to run his offense, he did the same thing at Oklahoma when he had Baker and he had Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts. They try to run a high flying fast, sometimes over on the ball a little, mix it in, run the ball. Quarterback moves around a little bit. I think that that's something Penn State's not used to. Obviously, UCLA's not as good as USC, but they were getting some things done in the first half with the quarterback and with the young guy they weren't prepared for. So I think that all that coupled together, I think they can win that. Also, Penn State's playing with their food, and that's tough to adjust to that at this point. Right? They're playing close games with Bowling Green, beating UCLA more in the second half than in the first half. They struggled in the first half. That's tough to readjust yourself and now go and beat a team on the road like this. So I think that could catch up to them also.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, when's the last time Penn State's not playing the Jaden Daniels, the Michael Penixes, the Caleb Williams, the Jalen Milroe? Penn State doesn't play guys like that. The only team that they play for the last several years that has guys that resemble that is Ohio State, and it's the team that whoops their ass every year. So, all right, next up, Ole Miss LSU. This is one of the biggest games of the day, and I can't find any betting value on it. I just put over up for me, Prop Beaver, because in my opinion, we're going to see a similar game to what we saw last year, which was absolutely electric. One of the best college football games we saw all year. Final score was 55-49. Ole Miss won that game. Based on the way these two teams are built this year, I think we should see pretty much the same. We know LSU's defense may be slightly better than last year, but it's still by far the weakness of this team. And Ole Miss has one of the best offenses in college football. And then on the other side, if you look at the numbers, you might be like, Ole Miss, they got a good defense. Sure, they have a great defense on paper, but this Ole Miss defense is infamous for having a top 10 defense until they play LSU or Alabama or Georgia, until they play one of the big teams in the SEC, and then that defense doesn't look good at all. So LSU, obviously electric offense. I don't think they have problems scoring the ball on Ole Miss either, scoring points on Ole Miss either. So my pick for this game would be the over. I actually don't have a bet in it because I honestly think LSU plus 3.5 sounds kind of sharp, but I think Ole Miss is the significantly better team, which puts me in a bind here. So over or pass?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is I don't have a bet in this either. It's kind of two weird teams. They look great most of the season. They have some weird letdown spots. LSU's offense is great. Nussmeier has actually been awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It's the second consecutive road game for Ole Miss, and this time in Death Valley. How many times can you catch over a field goal at LSU? I would take LSU here if I was making a bet. But this LSU passing game is going to be the best passing game that Ole Miss has seen all season. I understand Ole Miss's defensive front is great, but LSU's pass protection is one of the best in the country. They're 7th in sacks allowed. They're 4th in pressures allowed. So one of the best parts of Ole Miss's defense is probably going to be taken away or at least just canceled out. I don't like Brian Kelly. I don't like him really at all, but they do have an extra week to prepare for this game. Trey Harris leading the nation in receiving yards. He's going to have a good day, I think. The problem is LSU's allowed 236 yards a game through the air, which is the most in the SEC. But I don't know. Caden Durham, LSU's freshman running back, he's been awesome so far. He was hurt, but he came back. Now he's averaging 8.4 yards per carry. So yeah, I would lean LSU just because I'm getting a field goal at home. But I think I'm not going to touch this game. I just want to watch it, and I hope it's a good game.
R-Truth.
R-Truth is on Ole Miss. Ole Miss. I will say you brought it up with the defense. The one time they saw a pretty good quarterback, which I'm not a good quarterback, but I guess Vandergrift's somewhat decent. They did get smoked by him a little bit. I do think they're going to. I don't think the defense is as improved as it looks on paper. I do think LSU will score a lot. I just think Dart and Ole Miss will score a lot more. I think that it could take one or two stops from LSU or by Ole Miss, and this game turns into a 2-touchdown loss, unless there's a mistake made by Mississippi here, or Ole Miss, I guess. I don't see them getting stopped. This offense should be insane. We are waiting on Trey Harris's status. He's a game time decision. Sounds like he was trending towards playing, but he was a game time decision. I know Lord BLT brought that up the other day, that if he does play, you would expect him to do a lot in a game like this. Obviously, they're a high flying offense, but yeah, I think the over would be a good play. I know it's awfully high, but I still think it hits, and obviously I think Ole Miss wins this one.
All right, last game up, biggest game of the night. Bucks Ducks. All right, so guys, all right, I'm on Oregon. I got it at +3.5. It looks like that's gone. I actually saw it at 2.5 earlier, but it looks like it's at 3 now. So I'm on the Ducks. The look ahead line for this game was Oregon -1. For this line to move 4.5 points based on what we've seen so far is crazy to me. Look, this is college football. We see good teams struggle against bad teams. We see it every single year. It shouldn't move the needle. I mean, let's look at last year as an example. Ohio State struggled with Indiana in the opener, and Indiana was terrible last year. It's not this year's Indiana. Does anyone even remember that? No, of course not, because it was irrelevant. And when it came down to the end of the season, no one even talked about those games because whatever, they won. Who cares? Look at the Oregon-Washington game from last year. Tell me that's not the most perfect example. Washington, that Michael Penix team in Washington, they almost lost to Arizona State. They almost lost to Washington State. They almost lost to Stanford. If you look at Oregon's body of work compared to Washington's, it wasn't even close. Oregon was smoking teams. Washington was barely beating bad teams. Oregon was laying 10.5 points in the game. Didn't matter. Washington beat them twice. These are the games where these teams are defined. What happens in those games against shitty teams, it's irrelevant in college football. These head coaches hold back sections of their playbook for these games because these are the games. This is the first data point for both of these teams. Well, actually, Ohio State has one against Iowa. That was a statement win for them. But for Oregon, this is the first look we're getting at this year's Oregon team. What happened so far doesn't mean anything because this is the first look. This is the first time we're going to see Dan Lanning throw a fastball with this team, and we don't know what it's going to look like. Entering the season, we expected this to be one of the best teams in the country, right? I mean, them struggling with a bad Idaho team that is literally meaningless. They might have been running a completely different set purposely. They do shit like that. So these early games against bad teams, they shouldn't move the needle at all. And last year's Washington team was a perfect example. They almost lost to all these bad teams. Oregon, with the body of work, was laying 10.5. Washington beat them outright. At the end of the season, the last teams standing for the college football playoff when we're at that time of year, no one's going to give a shit about those games against bad teams earlier in the year. No one's going to care because they're meaningless. This is the data point right here. This is our first look at this Oregon team, and plain and simple, it shouldn't be more than a field goal. Entering the season, I do think Ohio State is the better team, but on the road in Eugene, they shouldn't be laying more than 3. I understand as I'm saying this that they're not laying more than 3 anymore. I got it at +3.5. But yeah, I think Oregon has a chance to win, but I'm comfortable on my bet. Ducks +3.5.
I would take Oregon with 3.5 too. A lot of overreactions, sure, to this game. I think there's a lot of parity in this game. Obviously, Ohio State's great on all 3 phases of the game. Like Kyle said, and really almost the same thing with LSU. You're giving me more than a field goal at home. Yeah, I mean, you can still get some 3.5s, I see, but I know Ohio State's loaded with talent. I think Jordan James is even better than any Ohio State receiver personally on Oregon's side. So I'm not sure if Cornell Tate's starting. I know he didn't play last week. I think he's questionable for this game. But Oregon's 18th in passing yards allowed. Being at home is going to be a huge factor for Oregon. It's a crazy stadium to be in. It's one of the hardest places to play. Like I said earlier, is this going to hurt any of their playoff chances? No, probably not. But I think this is going to be a close game throughout. Ohio State ranks second in opponents allowed per game, and I think Oregon's going to play. I think Oregon would have been there too. I mean, I know they gave up that huge game to Boise State where they gave up a ton of points, but without that game, they would average around the same amount of points too. Plus, I would actually lean an under 2. 12 of the last 18 games involving Ohio State have been on the under. I wish I could say more about this game. It's the biggest one of the day, and I didn't bet it just because I think there's better value out there. I guess I would lean Oregon too. They have a solid running game. They're third in EPA per rush. If Gabriel doesn't make dumb mistakes, I do like the hook there. So another big thing is Jordan Birch might be out, which is the defense. Oregon's the best defensive lineman, so might be something to watch out for. But as long as you're giving me 3.5 at home, I would take Oregon.
People are saying, Boston Beckley says, I can't believe you guys are undervaluing Ohio State. They're laying more than a field goal on the road against the number 3 country in number 3 team in the country. How is that undervaluing? Someone said Ohio State's the better team. Yes, of course. They're laying on the road.
I also agree.
If this game was a pick'em, that means Ohio State's the better team because it would be 2.5 on a neutral field. They're laying 3, which means oddsmaker. This line is indicative that Ohio State is about 6 points better than Oregon, which is a lot. So. Go ahead, R-Truth.
I'll be quick because I know we want to get the community parlay in. I'm with these guys. I think that Oregon's going to win the game outright. 5-1 straight up at home against ranked opponents. Dan Lanning, granted, he was a favorite, and I think all of them. And none of those teams were Ohio State. But Ohio State, I do think this is a step up in class, as Toast would say. I know I've used that twice today.
Points are on a premium.
Yeah, points are at a premium is a good one. Can't wait for that college basketball coming up. But yeah, I think Oregon can win this. Dylan Gabriel, I don't think we've seen his best fastball. You put it perfectly. I think that this team, I won't say necessarily they've been holding back, but I think that they're going to show more than they've showed to this point. Maybe not on purpose or on purpose. So I just think Oregon's going to get it done. Seems to be popular here. So.
Someone just said, perfect. USMC vet. There he is. Ohio State has smoked everyone. Ducks almost lost to Idaho. Ducks are going to be put in a coffin. That's Oregon, Washington last year, twice. Oregon smoked everyone. Washington was almost losing to bad teams. That's you made my point for me. These good teams hold back shit for the big games. Here we are. Ducks plus 3.5.
Community parlay is for the community. We making a parlay. Yeah.
All right, community parlay. We got to do rapid fire voting. So you're going to count to 10 Mississippi on these votes.
Yeah,
Yep. Go Iowa money line. Rutgers money line. Georgia Tech money line. And that was too big. Louisville money line.
Army minus 27.
Do you want me to do my underdog wall?
Yeah.
Flip?
Yep. Here you go.
Go ahead, Andy.
Throw that out there. All right, so Amari Hampton, I told you already, I think he's going to run all over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech hasn't faced a rush attack near what he is. He's an NFL running back. I think they're going to run a lot. Could win the game outright. Will Rogers lower than 223.5 passing yards. Iowa's defense is going to be all over them. I don't think that this is a step up in class for him as well. I think that's going to be tough for him. And then Michael Hawkins, this one I don't really like as much now because there's some news that came out, which is probably indicative of the line movement. 207.5 pass plus rush yards. They're out their top 5 receivers at Oklahoma, so I don't know how many of those will be pass yards, but I do think he's going to run the ball a lot, and they might be trailing by a decent amount, so they might get some chunk plays based on that. So he could get over that anyway.
We're not doing community parlay today.
Here we are. Keep going.
Why not?
Because you have to read the other part of the underdog thing.
It's promo code BET, PET, if you don't have an Underdog Fantasy account. Red. All right, so who won the first one?
Iowa.
Iowa wins the first poll.
It's not like we're like you can still bet this at 12:01.
No,
You're not
just
changing
don't.
odds.
Well, there's not many noon games today. Most of them are later. So, Cal, Pitt. Who do they like at that?
Why are you
one?
so angry?
Pitt money line.
Why am I angry? Toast. I mean, scoop. Don't get me started.
Also, Iowa kicks off at 12:06.
Are you running off an hour's sleep right now? No, you're not. Fucking idiot.
Same.
I am. I'm not angry.
I know it is. Just calm down.
I can't get this going right now, dude.
All right. No community. I don't know. He's having a mental breakdown over here. So,
He's going crazy.
all right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. See you all tomorrow at 11 a.m. for the NFL.